Chapter 4178. I don't know. I haven't heard from him since he left for half a month. Then I came back, so I don't know how he is now. Ning Xuefei shook her head helplessly. Well, isn't it said that Wuxia Mountain is very dangerous? I'm very worried about brother Lin Yi. Han Jingjing was worried. Suddenly she blinked her big eyes and said, Fei, why don't you write to him and ask? Okay, to be honest, I'm also a little worried. I'll write to Lan Er and ask. Ning Xuefei agreed readily and immediately wrote a letter. After sending it out, the two women were still chattering about Lin Yi. But this time it was the opposite. Ning Xuefei took the initiative to pester Han Jingjing to tell her about Lin Yi's various things in the secular world. Although Han Jingjing had mentioned it before, she didn't know who Lin Yi was at that time, and she didn't think there would be any intersection between them, so she didn't take it seriously at all. But now it was different. Not only Han Jingjing, his real girlfriend, was concerned about Lin Yi's affairs, but she, the little princess of West Island, was also inexplicably worried about him. In the North Island, it had been a few days since he killed Su Zhaohe with one move last time. In the face of Lin Yi's strong and domineering return, except for a lot of discussion in the three pavilions, no one dared to trouble him for a while. If Lin Yi was just a normal number one newbie, there'd be a lot of people coming to cause trouble for him, whether it was for fame or profit. But now he'd killed Su Zhaohe in one hit. Even in the history of the three pavilions, he was undoubtedly the number one newbie in the history of the three pavilions. With such strength, even if he was a newcomer, he was definitely a top-notch existence in the three pavilions, and ordinary people couldn't afford to offend him. Coming to find trouble was completely courting death. Who dared to provoke him? As for those who were stronger than Lin Yi, although it wasn't to say that they didn't exist, they were either the direct disciples of those top big shots, or they were famous people like the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall Gong Yangjia. Unless there was a huge conflict of interest, they wouldn't come looking for trouble with Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi wasn't just strong. After the last battle, news of Shangguan Tianhua's favor had spread throughout the three pavilions. No matter who it was, they wouldn't be able to make a move on Lin Yi. They had to consider Shanghai Tianhua's attitude. Therefore in recent days Lin Yi had a rare leisure time. Except that Shanghai Laner occasionally brought Huang Xiaotao to chat with him, what he had to do every day was to go to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce to wait for the news of the growing mushroom, or to practice in the cave residence to stabilize his realm. A high-level battle of life and death was enough to make up for months of hard work. This was common knowledge in the cultivation world. And when Lin Yi fought against Su Zhaohe, even though it was not intense and could only be regarded as a small test, it was still a real battle of life and death. In addition, Lin Yi had been practicing hard during this period of time. Now, not only had he completely stabilized his early golden elixir realm, but there were even signs of a breakthrough. Above the early golden elixir realm was the peak of the early golden elixir realm. Such a speed was not only shocking, but even Lin Yi himself felt that it was incredible. This speed was comparable to when he broke through from the early foundation establishment stage to the peak of the early foundation establishment stage. It completely overturned the common sense that the higher the level, the harder it was to break through. It could only be said that the so-called perfect breakthrough and the so-called strongest golden elixir realm master were not empty words. If this continued, the day when Lin Yi became truly invincible in the golden elixir realm would not be too far away. Finally, in this slightly leisurely wait, Lin Yi finally received news from Hong Zhong. The life-growing mushroom was in his hands. Just like its name, the life-growing mushroom was a combination of all known characteristics, and each characteristic had its own representative color. Therefore, at first glance, the life-growing mushroom could be described as colorful. More importantly, its color was not unchanging, but it could change at any time. The pattern of change was in accordance with the surrounding environment, naturally blending with the environment. It was an extremely brilliant protective color. It was already very rare, and with this layer of protective color that could change at any time, unless it was an experienced collector, it would be difficult to detect. It was not difficult to understand why the life-growing mushroom was so rare in the market. With the life-growing mushroom, Lin Yi immediately went to the King of Junk's secret base. When he found the King of Junk in the cave, this guy was still carefully controlling the fire. His expression was focused and he did not dare to let his guard down. Brother Wang, you've worked hard these past 2 months. Lin Yi will remember your hard work and hard work. Lin Yi could not help but be moved. Hey brother Lin, what are you saying? I've been entrusted with a task and this is all part of my duty. Moreover, I was the one who suggested it. With such an abnormal situation, if I don't keep a close eye on it, wouldn't I be letting down so many of your top-level materials? The King of Junk saw Lin Yi and was both surprised and happy. He waved his hand and laughed. Although he spoke calmly, Lin Yi was still very touched. It was a simple sentence of being entrusted with a task, but it had been more than 2 months, and he did not even know if it would succeed. He had insisted on guarding this place. If it were anyone else, they would not be so honest. Perhaps once Lin Yi left, he would have already sneaked away. Even putting aside the forging, the king of junk was definitely worthy of the word righteousness. To be able to make a friend like this, it was worth it. This is the life mushroom and the other materials you listed. Have a look, Brother Wang. Lin Yi patted the king of junk's shoulder heavily. Without saying anything else, he immediately took out all the repairing materials. Great. The king of junk was overjoyed. He took the materials and checked them carefully one by one until he was sure that they were all of high quality. He then nodded affirmatively. There had been an accident before, so the next remedy was very important. If he failed again, it would be a complete failure. Therefore, he could not afford to make any mistakes. How about it? Can we start again? Lin Yi asked expectantly. Well, let's not delay. Although there were not many changes in the past 2 months, some things can't be observed with the naked eye. It's not a good thing to delay for too long. Let's start now. The king of junk took a deep breath and immediately increased the heat. The originally lukewarm forging pool began to boil again. Then the king of junk mixed the materials given by Lin Yi and added them into the forging pool one by one. Then he guided them to the iron lump in the middle. Lin Yi watched all this attentively. Even with his calm temperament, he could not help but feel nervous at this moment. He had spent so many materials and energy on this casting. The success or failure depended on this move. Chapter 4179. They held their breath and stared at the lump of iron in the casting pool for half an hour. When Lin Yi and the king of junk couldn't help but look at each other, thinking that they had failed, the lump of iron finally reacted. The reaction was very, very slow, so subtle that ordinary people couldn't detect it. However, for both Lin Yi and the king of junk, Lin Yi's senses were very sharp, while the king of junk was a professional blacksmith. Sensing changes was one of his basic skills. At this moment, the lump of iron began to melt like 1,000-year-old ice, which couldn't escape their eyes at all. It's done? Lin Yi and the king of junk high-fived each other in celebration. As long as the ice was broken, the following changes would happen naturally. In the past 2 months, the king of junk didn't just simply look at the lump of iron. He took advantage of this time to thoroughly study the forging process and calculated every possible change. He had prepared more than 100 emergency plans for this. If he still failed, it would be God's will. As expected, the king of junk seemed to be at ease in the forging process. Every time there was an unexpected sign, it was immediately suppressed by him and couldn't cause any trouble. As they waited anxiously, several days passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Yi's originally calm mood gradually became uneasy, because the final time had come. Once it was successful, with all the top-level materials Lin Yi had thrown in, and the blood and sweat the king of junk had poured into it, the weapon he would be able to make would be one of a kind, even if it wasn't the first in history. Lin Yi's strength would skyrocket once more. However, in the midst of such anticipation and uneasiness, the king of junk's expression suddenly changed, and so did Lin Yi's expression. Right at the final step. It was stuck. What's wrong? Is there something missing? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask. He was just about to come out of the furnace, but it was suddenly stuck. This kind of feeling was really annoying. It's not that bad. The king of junk turned around and looked at Lin Yi with a bitter smile. He said helplessly, "It's very important to control the temperature and environment when a legendary weapon is produced. Only then can it be produced smoothly, but I can't do it." Huh? Can't do it? Lin Yi couldn't help but grin, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. At this critical moment, she actually said that she couldn't do it. What was going on? "Brother Lin, if we fail again this time, the problem will all be on me," the tattered king said in a low voice. Then he scratched his head in disbelief. "But it's only at the last minute. There have never been any problems before. Why is it not working today? Could it be that my forging skills are really that bad? It's fine. There won't be any more problems at this point anyway. If the first time doesn't work, then we'll try again. If the second time doesn't work, then we'll try a third time. Let's try more." Lin Yi comforted him. The tattered king nodded and continued with various attempts. However, what made him want to cry was that no matter what he did, it just wouldn't work. There would always be a slight error. Although it was only a little, it seemed to be an insurmountable gap. This time, even Lin Yi didn't know how to comfort him. He could only stare at the tattered king and stare at each other. The tattered king, who had always been confident, even began to doubt if his forging skills were really bad. Little did he know that if the weapon-forging masters were to find out about this, they would probably cry. 10,000-year tree crystals, ancient pure lands, and other rare treasures of heaven and earth, and you two actually put them all together. Even genius grandmasters like them would find it difficult to control them, and you two newbies actually dared to open a furnace and do it? You guys really don't know what you're talking about. It would be a miracle if you could even form it. In fact, it was already a miracle that you could reach the last step. However, the tattered king and Lin Yi didn't know that. They thought it was really their own problem, so they frowned and didn't know what to do. The last step of forming depended on the perfect control of the fire. There was no shortcut. Unless they could find a weapon-forging master to help them, it was impossible. Even an ordinary weapon-forging master couldn't do it. However, there were very few weapon-forging masters in the whole North Island. Except for the tattered king, it was hard to find a weapon-forging master. Moreover, in terms of forging skills, they were not as good as the tattered king. They couldn't be called weapon-forging masters at all. What should they do? Helplessly, Lin Yi could only let the tattered king stay in the cave and continue to try, while he went back to the welcome pavilion. After all, it was not a good idea to stay there. Even if he stayed there, he couldn't help the tattered king. But he couldn't get rid of it. Even when he came out alone, he couldn't help but frown. "Junior brother, what's wrong with you? You don't have fun with us?" Seeing this, Shanghai Laner couldn't help but pout. These days, she dragged Huang Xiaotao to play with Lin Yi when she had nothing to do. She claimed that she wanted to help them cultivate their relationship and be a competent matchmaker. Huang Xiaotao also looked at Lin Yi carefully. She was worried. She thought it was because she and Shanghai Laner came too often that Lin Yi was annoyed. "No, don't get me wrong. It has nothing to do with you two." Lin Yi hurriedly explained, "Actually, it's my own problem. I've been crafting with a friend recently, and we've used a lot of treasures and energy. I've tried everything I could to find the life-growing mushroom just for this crafting, but now that I'm about to succeed, I'm stuck at the last step. I can't form it. I really don't know what to do." "Oh, I see. It's a pity that my grandfather doesn't know anything about forging. Otherwise I could ask him to help." Shanghai Laner shook her head regretfully. "I still need to gather the materials for my weapon and send it to a blacksmith. But those blacksmith's levels aren't very high. I reckon they won't be of much use." Huang Xiaotao couldn't help with this kind of thing. The only thing she could do was to comfort Lin Yi and ask him not to be anxious. "There's no other way. We can only take it one step at a time. Let my friend continue to explore. I hope it won't get worse before we find a solution." Lin Yi could only smile bitterly. After chatting for a while, the few of them dispersed. Shanghai Laner happened to receive a letter from Ning Xuefei. She immediately wrote down everything that had happened to Lin Yi during this period of time in detail. She even included Lin Yi's current worries in the letter. Chapter 4180. Finally receiving a reply from Shangguan Laner, Ning Xuefei naturally couldn't wait to share it with Han Jingjing. Looking at Lin Yi's recent situation, especially the strong performance of killing Su Zhaohe in one move, the two women sincerely felt happy for Lin Yi. Brother Lin Yi is really powerful. He is already at the early stage of gold core. We also have to work hard, otherwise we can't keep up with brother Lin Yi's footsteps, Han Jingjing said with a look of admiration and determination. Well, it's not good to fall behind too much. Ning Xuefei nodded in agreement and said, "Jingjing, you haven't used your foundation establishment pill yet. Take it quickly to upgrade." "Yes, that's what I was thinking. We've hit a bottleneck with our automated crafting machine. I'm sure we'll be able to solve it once we get stronger. If we succeed, we'll be able to solve Big Bro Lin's problems." Han Jingjing said seriously. Yes, our automatic casting mechanism can perfectly solve this kind of fire control problem. It just happens to be of help to him. We have to work hard." Ning Xuefei cheered them on. "Well, let's work hard together." Han Jingjing said nothing and immediately took the best foundation establishment pill and began to meditate to break through. Although she did not pursue strength in order to help Lin Yi, she was willing to try anything. Ordinary days always passed in a flash. Recently, Lin Yi's life could be said to be uneventful. During this time, those forces against Lin Yi, his group of enemies, all coincidentally stopped. And Lin Yi was also happy to be idle. Although he still could not solve the problem of the casting not being able to take shape, he did not let this matter affect his normal cultivation. He was getting closer and closer to the peak of the early stage of gold core. As the days passed, the one-year period of welcoming Pavilion's newcomers was approaching. But a big event happened in the three pavilions of the North Island. Su Lingchong, the young master of Soaring Sky Pavilion who disappeared a few months ago, actually came back. As soon as the news came out, Everyone in the 3 pavilions was shocked. Many people were surprised and suspicious. Su Lingqiong's disappearance was confirmed by the law enforcement hall. He absconded in fear of being punished for the attempted rape of Shanghai Laner. He had been wanted for a long time in the whole North Island, but there had been no news of him. It was not until some time ago that the law enforcement hall suddenly withdrew the wanted order. Everyone thought that it was because they could not find the person, so they could only leave it be. Behind them, Su Yuanjing, the third elder of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, was also contributing. Cancel the wanted order to avoid being laughed at by others. Little did he know that even Su Yuanjing himself was baffled by this matter. He thought that it was Shanghai Tianhua who had come forward to say hello. After all, this matter was related to Shanghai Laner, and it was not convenient for others to come forward to say anything. Moreover, apart from Shanghai Tianhua, Ram Jia never gave face to anyone else in the 3 pavilions. What no one expected was that as soon as the arrest warrant was lifted, young Master Su, who had disappeared for several months, would suddenly appear again. It couldn't be someone with ulterior motives. Was it a smoke bomb deliberately released? This rumor was finally confirmed after Su Lingqiong appeared. This young Master Su who was once popular. Sure enough, he was back. What was even more shocking was that Su Lingqiong, who appeared again, was completely different from the previous image of a young master. Not only did his long hair flutter, but there was also a bit of inexplicable evil in his speech and behavior, which made people unconsciously feel strange. And the most shocking thing was that Su Lingqiong, who was only at the peak of foundation establishment before. Now, only a few months later, he actually had the powerful strength of the middle stage of Gold Core. The shock brought by this news was even no less than the discovery that Lin Yi was an expert at the early stage of Gold Core. In just a few months, he not only succeeded in forming his core, but also rose 3 levels in a row. This was simply a fantasy. Countless people had the same question in their hearts. How on earth did he do it? It was true that there were strange talents every year, but there were especially many this year. If Su Lingqiong's sudden return brought shock to the 3 pavilions, then the happiest person was his grandfather, Su Yuanjing. As the big boss of the Elders' Union, Su Yuanjing could be said to be mentally and physically exhausted during this period of time. For so many years, Su Lingqiong, this grandson of his, had always been his sole heir. Apart from Su Lingqiong, there was no other young person in the Su family who could take his place. Unlike ordinary families, the ancestors of the Su family were all local big families on the North Island. They were deeply rooted and powerful. The heir not only needed bloodline but also strong strength. Otherwise, he would not be able to control the situation, let alone be the head of the family. Looking at all the young people of the Su family, there was only one person who met this condition, Su Lingqiong. Therefore, after Su Lingqiong's sudden disappearance, this big boss Su Yuanjing was really anxious. The more powerful the family, the more importance it attached to the inheritance. Once something happened to the heir, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even with Su Yuanjing, this big boss, suppressing from above, he still could not stop the turbulent undercurrent. During this period of time, the Su family, including many of the collateral forces attached to the Su family, had obviously begun to be restless. But now, with the sudden return of Su Lingqiong, especially with the amazing strength of the middle stage Gold Core realm, all these problems were solved. How could he improve his strength to such an amazing level in just a few months? This was a question that Su Yuanjing would certainly ask, and the answer Su Lingqiong gave was that he had received guidance from a mysterious expert, so he could have such progress. Although Su Yuanjing still had doubts in his heart, of course the stronger his grandson was, the better. Since Su Lingqiong himself was unwilling to say more, he would not get to the bottom of it, but he was sincerely happy. However, if Su Yuanjing knew that Su Lingqiong had castrated himself, he did not know if the third elder of Rising Sky Pavilion would still be able to laugh. Other than Su Yuanjing, the one who was the happiest about Su Lingqiong's return was Kong Mingming, who used to be his follower. This was his biggest support before, and now he had returned with the domineering strength of the middle stage Gold Core realm. Moreover, because the arrest warrant was not settled, Shanghai Tianhua and Ram Jia did not say anything, the suspicion on Su Lingqiong's head had disappeared. Therefore, as soon as he returned, he once again occupied the position of the big brother in charge of Rising Sky Pavilion. This was definitely a thick thigh. Even the previously popular Lin Yi could not be compared to the current Su Lingqiong, so how could he not embrace him? When Kang Xiaoming heard the news, he immediately went to seek shelter. Although he was already an outer member of the guild center, it wasn't a bad thing to have someone to rely on. Zhong Pingliang, on the other hand, wanted to find out more about Su Lingqiong, so he went with him. Chapter 4181. Seeing that Su Lingqiong's temperament had changed greatly, The two of them were shocked and looked at each other. Su Lingchong did not look surprised but just glanced at the two of them lightly. "You're here? Where's the one called Si Haishao?" Su Lingchong asked directly. Si Haishao. Kang Mingming could not help but wonder, "Young Master Su, you also know shopkeeper Si? But he wasn't with us before, right?" "He wasn't before but he is now. Go and call him over," Su Lingchong instructed lightly. Kang Mingming did not dare to neglect and immediately went out to invite Si Haishao from the Central Chamber of Commerce. Along the way, Si Haishao could not help but be puzzled and nervous. Su Lingchong suddenly called him over. What did this mean? Could it be that the secret alliance with Kang Mingming and the others, and the matter of pulling them into the periphery of the Central Chamber of Commerce had been discovered by Su Lingchong? He was dissatisfied with being poached by him, so he wanted to make an example out of him? Muttering in his heart, Si Haishao finally decided to come and take a look. Although Su Lingchong had made a strong comeback and most people had to take a detour, Si Haishao was not someone to be trifled with. In terms of strength, he was stronger than a middle-stage gold core. In terms of status, he was also the spokesperson of the North Island of the Central Chamber of Commerce. He was not afraid of Su Lingchong in any aspect. In the future, whether Su Lingchong was an enemy or a friend, and how he should face this young master of Soaring Sky Pavilion, he had to personally come and confirm. Unexpectedly, when he came to Soaring Sky Pavilion with such thoughts, Su Lingchong's reaction was far beyond Si Haishao's expectations. "You are Si Haishao. Very good, follow me in the future." Su Lingchong glanced at him and nodded lightly. "What?" Si Haishao was momentarily stunned, and his expression immediately turned ugly. This young Master Su must be fucking sick in the head. "I'm the manager of the Central Chamber of Commerce, and even someone like Southern Polar Light calls me an old friend. Why would I fight with you for no reason?" For a moment, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Kang Mingming and the others looked at each other, not daring to make a sound. "Young Master Su, it's true that you're the big senior brother in charge of the Soaring Pavilion, but I'm the manager of the North Island branch of the Central Chamber of Commerce. We belong to different branches and we're not on the same path at all. Don't you think your words are too rude?" Si Haishao said in a low voice. "Hehe, is that so?" Su Lingchong smiled indifferently and suddenly threw out a photo. It was a photo of him and the mysterious man in black, and a handwritten letter was thrown out together with it, which clearly stated that Su Lingchong was appointed as the deputy manager of the North Island Center, and was fully responsible for the affairs of the North Island Center. The deputy manager of the North Island Center? How could this be? Upon seeing this, Si Haishao was shocked. This was much more powerful than the North Island intelligence group that he was secretly in charge of. However, Su Lingchong's strength was obviously not as high as his. I have a backer in the center. I am the direct disciple of Master Pao. That is an existence that even the mysterious man in black has to revere. Do you understand now?" Su Lingchong saw through the other party's doubts. He said proudly, "Ah, Master Pao?" Si Haishao was shocked and confused, but he could not refute. He could only lower his head and carefully read the appointment letter in his hand. There was a unique symbol of the center on it. This could not be faked at all. Moreover, he was in charge of intelligence, so it was impossible to get away with it in front of his eyes. In fact, when he saw the photo for the first time, he already believed Su Lingchong. Although the mysterious man in black still did not show his face, his figure and temperament could not be disguised by others. Moreover, Su Lingchong suddenly disappeared and returned. Within a few months, he suddenly became an expert at the middle stage of the gold core realm. This matter was full of strangeness. According to common sense, it could not be explained at all. However, if he joined the center, then it could be understood. "Yes, master." Si Haishao had no choice but to lower his head and say to Su Lingchong helplessly. At the same time, he glanced at Kang Mingming. It seemed that this guy was going to be rich in the future. He had found a powerful backer. "That's great. I didn't expect Master Su to be one of the top figures in our center. Congratulations, Master Su." Kang Mingming saw the situation and quickly flattered him. Zhong Pingliang followed along, but he couldn't help but mutter in his heart. The young master of the Soaring Pavilion had become one of the top figures in the center. Su Lingchong was like a hen turning into a duck in the blink of an eye. Moreover, why did the Master Pao that he mentioned sound a little weird? At this time, Su Lingchong turned his head. His gaze went past Si Haishao and landed on Murongzhen, who came with him today. The shocked Murongzhen. "Greetings, Master Su. I offended Miss Shangguan last time. I apologize to Master Su here. I hope that Master Su will forgive me and let me go," Murongzhen quickly said carefully. Shangguan Laner? Su Lingchong waved his hand indifferently and said faintly, it's just a woman. It doesn't matter. Since you've joined the center, you're one of us. Let's forget about what happened in the past. If it was before his disappearance, he wouldn't have caused trouble for Murongzhen in order to get on Shangguan Laner's good side. But now that he had castrated himself, Shangguan Laner naturally didn't matter anymore. Thank you, Master Su. Murongzhen was overjoyed. She thought that it would be a tragedy for her to run into Su Lingchong's gun. One had to know that other than Shangguan Laner, he was also one of her targets for revenge. She didn't expect Su Lingchong to be so magnanimous and just let it go. In the past, she was angry with him because of hatred. But now, Master Su was not only powerful and had a noble status, but he also had an indescribable temperament of a powerhouse. Although he was a little feminine, he was still the best among men. Murongzhen could not help but feel a ripple in her heart. This young Master Su was so generous to her. Could it be that he had taken a fancy to her beauty? If she could hook up with him, then her future would be much better than following an old pervert like Si Haishao. Master Su, if you don't mind, would you like me to massage your shoulders? I've practiced it before. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. Murongzhen's eyes were like silk and her body was enchanting. She twisted her waist and walked toward Su Lingchong. No need. You don't have to waste your time. I'm not interested in you. Su Lingchong saw through her mind and rejected her coldly. Yes. Murongzhen's face turned red as she stopped walking. Kang Xiaoming and the others were all sneering at her, especially Kang Si Haishao, who was glaring at her. This shameless bitch. Chapter 4182. By the way, how is that Meng Tong now? Su Lingchong suddenly asked. Apart from Meng Jueguang, who had died long ago, among the forces he cultivated in the Welcome Pavilion, only Meng Tong was not present. 3W He has changed a lot during this time. His temperament has changed a lot. It's like he's a completely different person. He usually secludes himself in the cave and rarely comes out. Kang Mingming answered. Well, what about Linny? When I just came back, I heard that you guys were defeated again and again. Su Lingchong changed the topic. He had heard about Lin Yi's strong return and instantly killing Su Zhaohe. He asked this to confirm it. Yes. Everyone looked at each other and nodded submissively. They really didn't know what to do with Linny right now. You bunch of useless trash. Su Lingchong scolded coldly and then said with a look of disdain, forget it, let's wait for me to do it myself. Waha, with Master Pao's teachings, no matter how that Linny jumps around, he's just a grasshopper after autumn. He's not far from death. Young Master Su is mighty. Kang Mingming quickly took the lead to flatter him. Young Master Su, may I ask who that Master Pao is? Si Haishao asked carefully. He was the highest level among these people and he specialized in intelligence. However, even he had never heard of such a powerful person like Master Pao in the center. Is this something that a servant like you can ask? Su Lingchong glanced at him with dissatisfaction, but when he saw everyone's curiosity, he could not help but praise. In short, Master Pao is very powerful. He's one of the top figures in our center. I have already cultivated Master Pao's unique divine skill, the Chrysanthemum Treasure Book. Chrysanthemum Treasure Book? Everyone's expression suddenly changed. It was rumored that this was a peerless ancient divine skill. Even the Heaven Stage Island had been extinct for many years. It was said that there was only one sect in the secular world. Until now there was still an inheritance. Su Lingchong had actually cultivated such a peerless divine skill. But thinking about it carefully, the Central Chamber of Commerce could trade with the secular world, so it wasn't impossible for them to obtain such an unparalleled divine art from the secular world. Pingliang's face was filled with shock as well, but his focus was completely different from the others. Master Pao? Chrysanthemum Treasure Book? Holy shit. This great Pao wouldn't be Zhang Naipeo, would it? Fuck, this kid better not betray us. I was pretending to join the center, but this Zhang Naipeo kid. He seemed to be doing quite well in the center? No, this is important information. I have to think of a way to inform Boss Lin Yi. Master Su, congratulations on your amazing martial arts. From now on, Master Su will definitely be the best among the younger generation of the three pavilions. Kang Mingming quickly flattered, but he was just as surprised as Pinliang was. After all, he knew Zhang Naipeo, Master Pao and the Chrysanthemum art were two distinct labels, and any normal person wouldn't be able to help but think about it. Of course, doubts were just doubts. Before actually meeting this Master Pao, everything was just a guess, so he could only temporarily suppress it in his heart. Otherwise, he would really have to say it out in front of everyone. If he guessed correctly, it would be fine, but if he guessed incorrectly, not only would he make a fool out of himself, but he would also anger Master Pao. That wouldn't be worth it. Humph. Dominating the 3 pavilions is only the first step, the path I'm going to take in the future. There's still a long way to go. Su Lingchong smiled proudly. After joining the center, his vision was completely different from before. Originally, young Master Su had wholeheartedly wanted to take over Su Yuanjing's position and become Shangguan Tianhua's son-in-law, allowing the Su family to rise to the next level. But now this was already child's play to Su Lingchong. His ambition was far greater than this. With the support of the center, he had power and influence. As long as he advanced step by step, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to achieve great things. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, everyone, including Si Haishao, fought to be the first to flatter Su Lingchong. They flattered him until he was overjoyed, and only then did they disperse. Right, Zhao Ming, Pinliang, accompany me to Welcome Pavilion. I want to see that brat Meng Tong. Su Lingchong stopped the 2 of them. He paused for a while and suddenly sneered, I can also go and take a look at Lin Yi. Isn't this guy in the limelight now? I want to see how much he has grown. When he spoke of Lin Yi, Su Lingchong's originally feminine bearing suddenly became even more sinister, and he was like a venomous snake spitting out its scarlet-red tongue, causing the hairs of everyone present to unconsciously stand on end. Although joining the center was a blessing in disguise for Su Lingchong, he didn't forget that day when he was wiped off by little curly bear Ka. Almost every time he closed his eyes, he would think of that day, and it was like a nightmare that he couldn't get rid of. And the main culprit that caused all this was Lin Yi, who meddled in other people's business. After that, he was accidentally brought into the center by the mysterious man in black. Speaking of which, he still had to thank Lin Yi, but the way to thank him was naturally to find an opportunity to make him pay with his blood. Yes. Kang Mingming and Zhong Pinliang looked at each other and answered excitedly. Kang Xiaoming led the way in high spirits. He'd been suppressed by Lin Yi for so long, and he'd been given the cold shoulder by the head of the welcoming pavilion, Hu Yunfeng. He was a new deacon who'd lost his backer, and he wasn't what he used to be. Many newcomers didn't take him seriously anymore. But now, with Su Lingchong's strong return, he could finally use Su Lingchong's power to intimidate him again, and he could act cool in the welcome pavilion again. Zhong Pinliang, on the other hand, was pretending to be excited. The only thing on his mind right now was to find an opportunity to leak the information to boss Lin Yi. Zhang Naipeo's matter was very important. The 3 of them immediately went to the welcome pavilion. Hu Yunfeng, who was one of House Su's people, received the news and quickly came out to welcome them. However, when the group arrived at the Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers' cave, they didn't see Lin Yi. According to the reports from the other newcomers in the Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lin Yi had just been called away by Shanghai Laner not long ago. He left with Shangguan Laner? Su Lingchong's face changed when he heard that, but quickly returned to normal. He didn't have any love for Shangguan Laner anymore, just like how he treated Lin Yi. All he had left was anger and bone-deep hatred. Chapter 4183. Forget it. If that's the case, then I'll go check on Meng Tong. Either of you go and keep an eye on him. When you find Lin Yi or when he comes back, report to me. Su Lingchong paused and said coldly, also, you 2 go take a good look at him and see if he and Laner are together or not. This together wasn't referring to Lin Yi and Laner fooling around together, but to see if the 2 were in cahoots. This would affect how he would deal with Lin Yi. After all, if they really were together, he would have to worry about Shanghai Tianhua. That. Kang Mingming and Zhong Pingliang looked at each other, obviously unwilling. Today they came back with Master Su, and this was a chance to show off. Who wouldn't want to show off by Su Lingchong's side? If they were sent to keep an eye on him, then they wouldn't be able to show off anymore. Especially Kang Mingming, he was waiting for this chance to regroup and show off his power as a new deacon. How could he be sent out like this? Being stared at by Su Lingchong like this, Kang Mingming was anxious. He quickly looked at Zhong Pingliang and pretended to cough. Master Su, then why don't I go? Pinliang said, understanding what Lin Yi was implying. The reluctance on his face was an act, of course. He was waiting for this chance to send a message to Lin Yi's boss, but he couldn't appear too enthusiastic. Okay, you go. Su Lingchong nodded indifferently. Kang Mingming was secretly happy and gave Zhong Pingliang a thumbs up. He was very satisfied with Zhong Pingliang's initiative. Although his position was slightly threatened when Su Lingchong went missing, now that Master Su was back, his position naturally rose again. In terms of relationship with Su Lingchong, he was much closer than Zhong Pingliang. But it was rare for Zhong Pingliang to be so tactful. It seemed like he could help him in the future. He could be the scapegoat at the crucial moment. Pinliang turned around and left, chuckling at the same time. Kang Ming was still counting the money after being sold. If it weren't for him, he wouldn't have gotten the chance to tip off boss Lin Yi. Although Lin Yi was not in the cave residence, he knew Lin Yi very well. Since he was called out by Shanghai Laner, he most likely went to the Grove, which was the place they often played. He sent Pinliang out to keep a lookout. Kang Ming, on the other hand, continued to follow Su Lingchong. They arrived at the entrance of Meng Tong's cave residence and touched the cave residence's restriction. "Yeah. Young Master Su, you're back?" Meng Tong opened the door of the cave abode and saw a group of people waiting in front of him. Especially Su Lingchong, who was the leader. He was immediately shocked. During this period of time, he had been cultivating in seclusion and rarely came out. Everyone outside knew about this rumor. Everyone knew that he had never heard of it. He didn't care about the other Kang Ming's group, but when he suddenly saw his long-lost backer, it would be strange if he wasn't surprised. Su Lingchong looked at Meng Tong, who seemed to be a different person. His eyes couldn't help but light up, and he was a little surprised. The previous Meng Tong was a complete idiot cannon fodder, but the current Meng Tong. Not only was his strength different from before, but more importantly, his entire image and temperament had become unfathomable. A head of white hair fluttering in the wind. He had a different kind of charm. Su Lingchong's heart moved slightly, and he waved his hand to the people behind him, ordering, "Zhao Ming, you guard outside, I'll go in and have a good chat with Meng Tong." After saying that, Su Lingchong took the initiative to pull Meng Tong into the cave abode, and the two of them walked into the cave abode, closing the door and restriction. No one knew what they were going to do in there, leaving only Kang Ming, Hu Yunfeng and the rest looking at each other at the door. At this moment in the small forest, Lin Yi was sitting together and chatting with Shangguan Laner, while Huang Xiaotao was at the side, playing with the little curly bear. "Hee, little white seems to like playing with Xiaotao recently." Lin Yi couldn't help but raise his eyebrows in surprise. Although this little guy wasn't very shy, other than Shangguan Laner and himself, it rarely took the initiative to get close to others. He didn't expect it to hit it off so well with Huang Xiaotao. It's trying so hard to please senior sister Xiaotao, but it actually has an ulterior motive. Shangguan Laner giggled. "Why do you say that?" Lin Yi asked curiously. Little White played with senior sister Xiaotao's spirit bird for an afternoon last time, and in the end he fell in love with the feeling of flying on the bird. He couldn't stop at all, and I had to coax him for a long time before he went to sleep. Shangguan Laner pouted. "Oh? Little White is preparing to become a flying knight, and his ambition is great." Lin Yi laughed. "It's not a bad thing, at least it's much better than dragging the big scissors around to scare people every day." Since the birthday banquet, when it carelessly killed Su Lingchong, the little curly bear inexplicably fell in love with the big scissors, and it simply couldn't put it down even when it was eating or sleeping. It really gave everyone a headache for a while, but now the little guy's interest had finally shifted. "Hee, that's true." Shangguan Laner stuck out her tongue, and suddenly her expression changed. "Speaking of this little junior brother, have you heard that Su Lingchong is back?" "Yes, I've already heard about this. They said that this young Master Su has changed a lot. He's now a master in the middle phase of the Golden Elixir realm. He's really awesome." Lin Yi nodded as usual. "I don't know what Ramjia is thinking. He actually cancelled his wanted order, and after offending me he actually let him come back to show off. It's really infuriating." Shangguan Laner said angrily. "Cancelling the wanted order, this is Ramjia's own decision? Isn't it Su Yuanjing or other higher-ups who are pressuring him?" Lin Yi's heart moved. The rumors in the streets were all Su Yuanjing's work, but if it was Ramjia's initiative, then the meaning revealed in this was a bit thought-provoking. I don't know about this, but the Silent Gourd is the law enforcement hall master. If he didn't agree no matter what other people do, there is definitely no way to cancel the wanted order, this is certain." Although Shangguan Laner never cared about these things, but she was influenced by what she saw and heard, she was also clear about the knack of this. Is it really Ramjia's initiative to nod? Lin Yi thoughtfully pinched his chin. He had also dealt with Ramjia before. According to his understanding, this person was extremely arrogant and confident. If he was not willing, even God would not be able to make him bow down. Who knows, the most important problem now is that Su Lingchong, that guy, came back aggressively this time. He definitely has bad intentions towards you, little junior brother. Shangguan Laner said with a worried face. Chapter 4184. Although Su Lingchong's sudden return had indeed surprised him, but now things were different. With his current strength, this young Master Su could no longer pose a fatal threat to him. But Su Zhaohe is only at the early stage of gold core, and Su Lingchong is a middle stage gold core master? Shanghai Laner couldn't help but remind him. Don't worry, it's fine. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Although he was only at the early stage of gold core, he was the strongest gold core master who had a perfect breakthrough. Even if he was facing a middle stage gold core master, it was not a problem. Even if he couldn't kill him in one move, suppressing the opponent was not a problem. He had this confidence. Then, little junior brother, you have to be careful. I have seen Su Lingchong from afar before, and I feel that this guy is indeed different from before. From afar, he has an indescribable evil aura, and I always feel that he is neither yin nor yang. Moreover, he has been back for so many days, but he hasn't come to harass me. Shanghai Laner blinked her big eyes and said, if it was the previous Su Lingchong, no matter what, he would come to pester her every 2 to 3 days. Now that he was ignoring her like this, it was as if the sun rose from the west. You can't blame Su Lingchong for this matter. The source is Little White. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. Su Lingchong had been killed. If he could be masculine, then he would really see a ghost. As the two were talking, Zhong Pingliang rushed in from the forest path far away, winking at Lin Yi from afar. Lin Yi saw it and knew that something had happened. He told Shanghai Laner and quickly walked over. Boss Lin Yi, this is bad. Zhong Pingliang said in shock. What's wrong? Lin Yi looked at him in surprise. Su Lingchong is back. He has become a middle-stage gold core master. He is unprecedentedly strong. And his entire temperament has changed. Zhong Pingliang reported. Yes, I already know this. Little senior sister also told me just now. Lin Yi nodded, still calm as usual. No, it's like this. I just heard it from his own mouth. He's now the vice manager of the North Island, and he's practicing the chrysanthemum art. The one who taught him this art is a high-ranking member of the North Island, Master Pao. Pinliang told Lin Yi everything he'd heard and seen. What? Chrysanthemum treasure book? Master Pao? After listening, Lin Yi's expression became a little strange. Seeing Lin Yi's expression, Pinliang knew that he was thinking the same thing. Boss Lin Yi, this Master Pao you're talking about isn't that Pao kid, is it? Well, it's hard to say. Lin Yi frowned. You know Nai Pao the best. Are you sure it's him? I guess so. Pinliang nodded heavily and gritted his teeth, but this kid better not betray us. Fuck, if he dares to, I'll kill him myself. Yes, we can't verify this for now. Let's wait and see. Just keep an eye on Su Lingchong. Lin Yi thought about it. Suddenly hearing this news, he felt that things seemed to have become a little complicated. This mysterious and unpredictable center. What kind of god was it? Why did the Middle Island and the North Island have them, and they were all so powerful? Back in the common world, Lin Yi had heard of the center's name. Jiangwen seemed to be with them. Elder Xianxin also worked with the center, but there were only a few biohumans at that time. They didn't pay too much attention to it. How did they come to Sky Island now? How did the center become so powerful? Were the center of the common world and the center of Sky Island the same people, or was it just a coincidence of names and they had nothing to do with each other? If the two centers were the same, then they would be able to extend their tentacles into the secular world and Heaven Stage Island at the same time. Then this mysterious central force would truly be a bit shocking. Alright, I'll listen to you, boss. Right, Su Lingchong is at the Welcome Pavilion now. He wanted to see you but you weren't there, so he sent me out to keep watch. What do you plan to do, boss? Do you want to go back and meet him or just ignore him? I'll just say that I didn't find you, Pinliang said. No need, I'll go back and meet him. Lin Yi smiled faintly. To be honest, I'm a little curious about what this Master Su has become. After saying that, Lin Yi turned to say goodbye to Shengguan Lan'er and Huang Xiaotao, and immediately followed Zhong Pingliang back to the welcoming pavilion. The door to the welcome pavilion opened again, and Su Lingchong and Meng Tong walked out with smiles on their faces, one on the left and the other on the right, walking side by side. This is my partner from now on, you guys have to call him Meng bro. Su Lingchong instructed Kong Ming and the others. Ah. Kong Ming was stunned and Pinliang came back at that moment. He couldn't help but grin when he saw the scene. No matter how he looked at the relationship between these two, something didn't seem right. It was a little weird, wasn't it? Speaking of which, when did Master Su become so courteous? Although Meng Tong had become more unfathomable than before, he couldn't be compared to Si Haishao in terms of strength or status. Master Su didn't even care about Si Haishao before, so why was he so nice to Meng Tong? And he even called him Meng bro? Meng Tong was just a small cannon fodder in the past. When did his status become so high that he could step on their heads? How is it? Where's Lin Yi? Su Lingchong stood side by side with Meng Tong, ignoring everyone's weird expressions as he turned to Pinliang and asked. I saw him walking this way just now, he should be back. Pinliang nodded. Okay, let's go take a look. Su Lingchong's lips curled into a cold smile as he immediately led everyone towards Lin Yi's cave. At the entrance of the cave, Su Lingchong and the others just happened to meet Lin Yi, who came back specially. Looking at Lin Yi, who seemed to have been reborn, Su Lingchong's cold and vicious eyes couldn't help but focus slightly. Lin Yi looked him up and down, also a little surprised. With a body full of evil aura, Su Lingchong's current temperament was neither yin nor yang, but it was especially compatible with Meng Tong, who was standing beside him with the same temperament. Both sides met, and before they spoke, Su Lingchong's cold aura suddenly became ferocious and violent. The powerful aura of a middle-stage golden core master poured out without holding back, like a sudden eruption of a mountain torrent, pressing down on Lin Yi's head. Lin Yi's side also didn't want to be outdone, his aura also increased greatly. Although he was only at the early stage of golden core, 2 levels lower than Su Lingchong, but facing Su Lingchong's overbearing pressure, he didn't move and didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. Chapter 4185. As for the other newcomers present, with their mere foundation establishment stage strength, standing here was simply like a small boat in a monstrous wave, swaying unsteadily, with the possibility of capsizing at any time. This was still Su Lingchong and Lin Yi, both focusing their attention on each other. Otherwise, if they were to switch targets, these ordinary newcomers would probably be directly crushed by the imposing manner. People only need to look at you once and you will fall to the ground by yourself. They were all newcomers, but this was the difference between them and Lin Yi. Both sides confronted each other, and for a moment, the entire welcoming pavilion seemed to have the momentum of a coming storm. Perhaps the weather was just a coincidence, but at this moment, everyone's heart already felt a heavy pressure, especially to the surrounding ordinary newcomers. It was like the déjà vu of mortals suffering in a battle between immortals. However, although the imposing manner of both sides confronted each other tensely, regardless of whether it was Su Lingchong or Lin Yi, neither of them had the intention to make a move. Lin Yi needn't be mentioned, and although Su Lingchong wanted to kill Lin Yi, he couldn't attack Lin Yi without a reason, or else he would be arrested by the law enforcement hall and punished in public. Lin Yi, this young master heard that you seem to be very arrogant recently? Su Lingchong suddenly curled his lips and smiled coldly. Hee, Senior Su, you flatter me. I'm just living my life, but I can't stand some people who don't have eyes. They always send themselves to be abused, so I can only reluctantly do it, Lin Yi replied indifferently. Very good, since you are already a golden core initial stage expert, it is rare for a newcomer to have such a performance. It is worthy of praise. Su Lingchong didn't seem to hear the mockery in Lin Yi's words, and instead suggested, this young master can make the decision to make an exception and recruit you as an official disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Are you willing? As soon as these words came out, the surrounding people immediately went into an uproar. The Soaring Sky Pavilion was the most powerful among the 3 pavilions, this was without a doubt, and regardless of resources or status, it was a lot higher than the other 2 pavilions. Under normal circumstances, any Profound Secrets Pavilion or Clear Cloud Pavilion disciple who had the chance to join the Soaring Sky Pavilion was a dream come true. Su Lingchong, as the eldest senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion and the grandson of the 3rd elder of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, Su Yuanjing, did indeed have such authority in his hands. As long as there was a suitable reason, it was not too difficult for him to get someone to join the Soaring Sky Pavilion. I'm not willing. Lin Yi's answer was concise and clear, causing the surrounding people to be taken aback. Ha! Su Lingchong was immediately stunned. The reason why he suddenly made this suggestion was because actually, his ultimate goal was to teach Lin Yi a lesson. After all, with his current identity he was one of the representatives of Soaring Sky Pavilion. It was simply inconvenient for him to make a move against Lin Yi. Moreover, if he wanted to challenge Lin Yi like Su Zhaohe before, he would not have an official reason to do so. After all, he could not make the matter of his self-castration public. However, if he could get Lin Yi into the Soaring Sky Pavilion, then as the eldest senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, it would be a piece of cake for him. At that time, it would be a piece of cake for him to pinch and flatten, and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to escape from his palms. However, he did not expect that. Lin Yi rejected it without hesitation. Could it be that this guy had seen through his intentions? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you reject it now, this road will be blocked by you. Don't even think about entering the Soaring Sky Pavilion in the future. Have you thought it through? Su Lingchong was still unwilling to give up. I'll just stay here. It's pretty good. Senior brother Su, you don't have to worry about me. Lin Yi was stubborn. He looked Su Lingchong up and down and then said with a playful expression, Senior brother Su, it's great to see that you're fine. However, Lin Yi's laughter was baffling to the bystanders, but Su Lingchong was well aware of it. Motherfucker, this kid was laughing at him for losing his family jewels? What are you laughing at? Su Lingchong was instantly pissed off by his laughter. He said furiously, if you laugh again, believe it or not, this young master will kill you right now. You control the heavens and the earth and you still care whether I laugh or not. The authority of the Soaring Sky Pavilion's eldest senior brother in charge isn't so exaggerated, right? Lin Yi looked at him mischievously. Lin Yi, you have guts. You better be careful. Don't let this young master get hold of you. Su Lingchong was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. However, he could not make a move against Lin Yi. He could only turn around and leave with a gloomy face. He really did not expect that Lin Yi, this fellow, was actually not afraid in the slightest when facing the current him. Looks like this kid is not as easy to deal with as I imagined. I have to plan properly in the future. Lin Yi and Shengguan Laner, these two must pay the price. As he looked at Su Lingchong's disappearing figure, the corners of Lin Yi's mouth slightly curled. He has come with ill intentions. Since this fellow has returned, then he will surely look for trouble with me. I really have to be careful in the future. In the following period of time, Lin Yi rarely went out, and he cultivated behind closed doors within his own abode every day. Originally, he had already faintly touched the barrier of the peak of the initial stage of the Golden Core realm, and he originally thought that he would be able to break through in one go. However, he didn't know why he seemed to have encountered a bottleneck. He was obviously only left with the last small step, yet he was unable to cross it all along, and he didn't know where the problem was. Besides this, another matter caused Lin Yi to be rather surprised. Su Lingchong actually didn't come looking for trouble with him. During this period of time, Su Lingchong continuously attended various occasions, and he once again became the big senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, and his power and status gradually stabilized. However, the only thing he didn't go looking for trouble with Lin Yi. What was even more strange was that no matter where Su Lingchong went, he always brought Meng Tong with him, and the two of them were actually inseparable like glue. It even caused Kong Ming to feel jealous in his heart. He had always considered himself to be Su Lingchong's #1 underling. Now, the trust and importance that Meng Tong obtained were obviously far above Kong Ming, and what made him even more unhappy and bewildered was that Su Lingchong still insisted that they must call Meng Tong as Brother Meng. To treat Meng Tong, they must be at his beck and call with the utmost respect, just like how they treated him, young Master Su. Damn it, this is simply acknowledging an ancestor. What bewitching soup did this fellow Meng Tong feed to young Master Su, to actually be so good to him? This is too good. Moreover, the relationship between the two of them that was inseparable like glue, in the eyes of Kong Ming, it was not at all like ordinary friends, or as simple as a superior and subordinate. The feeling it gave others was more like a pair of intimate lovers. Lovers? As soon as this strange thought emerged, it gave Kong Ming a fright, and the more he thought about it, the stranger he felt. However, he didn't dare to ask much and could only continue to serve Su Lingchong with a shudder. Kong Xiaoming wasn't the only one who had this suspicion. Everyone else who was close to Su Lingchong had the same question. Two grown men suddenly becoming so close to each other? This relationship was clearly beyond friendship. It was hard not to be suspicious. Chapter 4186. However, like Kong Ming, they could only keep their doubts in their hearts and did not dare to speak them out. They did not even dare to talk about it in private. If Su Lingchong knew about it, it would not be a joke. In this strange peace, the days passed day by day. The King of Rags was persistent, but there was no sign of it taking shape. Fortunately, under his persistence, the situation in the casting pool did not deteriorate further. It was just in a stalemate at the final juncture, which could be regarded as a blessing in misfortune. Not only that, but Lin Yi was also at a bottleneck. He could only watch helplessly as the peak of the early phase of Golden Core was right in front of him. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break through the last layer of paper. It was really frustrating. Since it was a perfect breakthrough, and since he was the strongest master in the Gold Core stage, Lin Yi thought that this kind of breakthrough in the early stage of Gold Core should be a natural thing. He never thought that he would be stuck at this step. If other masters in the Gold Core stage knew about this, they would really cry. It had only been a few months since Lin Yi had formed his Gold Core, but he wanted to go to the next level without the assistance of any elixirs. How could these golden core stage experts, who had been unable to advance even an inch for dozens or hundreds of years, and who had no effect even after taking top-grade medicinal pills, how could they endure this? Since he could not break through, according to his past experience, Linny knew that it was useless to rely on closed-door training at this time. He had to wait for a suitable opportunity, so he simply relaxed his mind and did not insist on breaking through in a short time. Bored, Linny took advantage of his leisure time to refine some elixirs. He asked Hong Zhong to use the channel of the Hong Chamber of Commerce to send the elixirs to the Tiandan Pavilion in Zhongdao. This was something he had planned long ago, which could help to relieve a lot of pressure on Tianshan. Although Tianshan was also a master in the early stage of gold core, she did not have the magical pesticide cauldron like Lin Yi. She could only guarantee the quality of 4th-grade pills. As for refining 5th-grade pills, it was still very difficult for her at this stage. While sending the pills, Lin Yi also specially wrote a letter to the Will of Heaven, asking him about the bottleneck. Although the Will of Heaven did not have a perfect breakthrough, he was still a senior who cultivated in the creation battle art. His experience should be of great reference value. Soon Lin Yi received a reply from the Will of Heaven. In the letter, the Will of Heaven said that although Lin Yi had a perfect breakthrough, he had just advanced to the golden core stage. It was the stage where he had accumulated a lot of experience. As long as he successfully broke through the first stage of the early stage of golden core, everything would be smooth from now on. At this stage, the key was to stabilize one's realm and accumulate one's foundation. This was a matter that could affect the entire gold core stage in the future, so he must not take it lightly. Therefore, it was not strange at all to encounter a bottleneck at this time, and it was definitely not a bad thing. Of course, this did not mean that he could not make progress from now on. Everything had to be done in moderation. Once he was stuck in the bottleneck for too long, it would not be a good thing. What Lin Yi needed to do now. Even if he did not insist on a quick breakthrough in a short period of time, he must also make the corresponding preparations and wait for the opportunity to break through. As for how to prepare, the suggestion given by the Will of Heaven coincided with what Lin Yi himself thought. It was the most stupid and unwise choice to blindly cultivate in seclusion. If he wanted to seize the opportunity to break through, there were only two ways. Either by fighting with others and constantly consolidating the realm in actual combat, or by taking natural treasures and external stimuli to enhance the foundation. It was just that Lin Yi didn't have any of these two methods at the moment. He had lost his golden core a long time ago, and his days were peaceful. The only strong enemy he had was Su Lingchong, but he didn't know why he didn't make a move. As for the people around him, they were too weak. He didn't even have a chance to find someone to practice with. At present, the only thing Lin Yi could count on was the trial of the 3 pavilions. Although there were no challenges within the Welcome Pavilion, if one looked at the entire 3 pavilions, there were many experts, and there were many whose strength was above Lin Yi's. In the blink of an eye, the 1-year period of the Welcome Pavilion had arrived. The newcomers of the 3 pavilions gathered in the lobby, each with a nervous heart, waiting for the final critical test that would determine their fate. Whether they could successfully join the 3 pavilions or not, it all depended on today. The newcomer competition was the most important event of the Welcome Pavilion. The 3 pavilions had sent their elders to watch the ceremony, and as the pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion, Hu Yunfeng, presided over the newcomer competition on the stage. It has been a whole year since everyone joined the Welcome Pavilion. I, the pavilion master, would like to congratulate all the newcomers for finally having the opportunity to officially join the 3 pavilions and become an official outer sect disciple. Hu Yunfeng opened the ceremony with a smile. All of the newcomers immediately revealed expressions of excitement. They had worked hard for a year just for this day. Once they left their status as newcomers and became official outer sect disciples, their status and treatment would increase greatly. This was something they had dreamed of. However, Hu Yunfeng's next words caused some people's expressions to darken. You're right. You're right. But unfortunately, this opportunity is only given to the newcomers who have already reached the foundation establishment stage. As for those newcomers who haven't even reached the foundation establishment stage, I can tell you frankly that you won't even have the opportunity to participate in the newcomer competition. In the future, mine well in Jade Spirit Hall, cultivate well, and maybe there will be a day where you can make a comeback. But unfortunately, there is no chance today. Hu Yunfeng's gaze fell on the newcomers who hadn't reached the foundation establishment stage yet. Due to the support of Zhongdao Alchemy Hall this year, the cultivation resources provided to the newcomers were far more abundant than in previous years. The success rate of newcomers reaching the foundation establishment stage was as high as 80% or even 90%. But there were still some who couldn't be helped, such as Cha Wu of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Listening to Hu Yunfeng's sentence, Cha Wu's face suddenly turned ashen. Being sent to Jade Spirit Hall to mine was the most tragic ending. Although there were indeed precedents of a counterattack, it was absolutely rare. Ordinary people couldn't be counted on at all. This time there was really no future at all. Cha Wu helplessly looked at Xiao Hongkai and the others. He thought that he wasn't much worse than Xiao Hongkai in the past. Why was the situation now so different? He didn't know that Xiao Hongkai's cultivation talent was far above his. Just in terms of conduct alone, she had already left him far behind. Xiao Hongkai could follow Lin Yi with all her heart. Even if she went against everyone, she would never leave or abandon him. But Cha Wu, he was a grass on top of the wall. He only knew to lean towards both sides. Who could blame him for falling into this situation today? Chapter 4187. As for the newcomers who have successfully reached the foundation establishment stage, although you are qualified to participate in the newcomer competition, don't be too happy. Hu Yunfeng continued in a clear voice. According to the usual rules every year, each of the 3 pavilions will only accept 5 newcomers. Therefore you must compete with each other. Only in the upcoming newcomer competition and get into the top 5 can you truly become an official disciple of the 3 pavilions. As soon as the voice fell, the crowd of newcomers suddenly burst into an uproar. This year there were very few people like Cha Wu who had not reached the foundation establishment stage, but Hu Yunfeng's words involved the vital interests of most of them. Looking at the 3 pavilions, each pavilion had at least 12 newcomers who had successfully reached the foundation establishment stage. However, there were only 5 places for official disciples in the outer sect. One could imagine how fierce the competition would be. Among the crowd, those who were strong enough to compete for the top 5 were certainly worthy of celebration. But what if they failed? They couldn't follow Cha Wu and the other trash to Spirit Jade Hall to mine, right? That would be too much of a scam. Fortunately, Hu Yunfeng quickly answered their doubts. The newcomers who did not get into the top 5 can continue to stay in the Welcome Pavilion and take on some duties, waiting for the opportunity to be promoted in the future. The duties in the Welcome Pavilion that Hu Yunfeng mentioned referred to the position of Senior Steward. If one could become a Senior Steward, although it would not be as direct as becoming an official disciple in the outer sect, it would still be considered a good future. However, the position of a Senior Steward depended on luck, and there would not be a vacancy all the time. Most of the people who stayed here generally took on the role of an ordinary steward, similar to Kang Mingming's current newcomer steward, or even worse than Kang Mingming. They could only help Hu Yunfeng and the others and did not have much power to speak of. After hearing this, the newcomers were relieved. As long as they were not sent to the mining area, it was still acceptable. At least they wouldn't be too miserable. Well, what should be said has been said. Next, let's get down to business. The newcomer competition will begin immediately. Hu Yunfeng immediately announced, the rule of this newcomer competition is that there are no rules. The elders of the 3 pavilions will be the judges, and all the newcomers will directly draw lots to compete until the top 5 are decided. As soon as the voice fell, Hu Yunfeng immediately signaled the senior steward of the 3 pavilions. He arranged for all the disciples to draw lots. As it concerned their future, the rookies were in high spirits. One by one they went to their steward senior brothers to draw lots. However, when it was Lin Yi's turn, Hu Yunfeng suddenly spoke from the stage. Lin Yi, you are now an early stage gold core expert. According to the rules, you can skip the outer sect official disciple and directly become an inner sect core disciple of the 3 pavilions. You don't have to participate, Hu Yunfeng said lightly. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. However, when they thought about it carefully, it made sense. For a freak like Lin Yi, it was impossible for Lin Yi to defeat him. The other rookies did not even have the courage to face him, much less attack him. What was the point of him participating in the rookie tournament? However, to be able to become an official outer disciple, directly becoming an inner sect core disciple, this kind of treatment made everyone envious. More than 90% of the outer sect disciples of the 3 great pavilions. For the rest of his life he could only bitterly stop here. The inner sect was something that he could only look at but not reach. This was something that couldn't be helped. To become an inner sect core disciple, the minimum condition was to successfully form one's core. This was enough to keep most people out. May I ask Pavilion Master Hu, does this mean that I have nothing to do with this rookie tournament? Lin Yi asked. That's right. However, the inner sect core disciples of the three great pavilions also have an end-of-year examination. Moreover, it will start in 2 days. Although you don't have to participate in the rookie tournament, you have to participate in the end-of-year inner sect disciple competition. This is a special exception made for you by the elders. Hu Yunfeng said lightly with a hint of playfulness on his face. This arrangement was actually Su Lingqiang's doing. It was personally proposed by his grandfather, Su Yuanjing, in the elders' meeting to embarrass Lin Yi. To be able to become an inner sect core disciple of the three great pavilions, every one of them was an elite among the elites. Although Lin Yi was awe-inspiring outside, he was still a newly advanced early-stage gold core expert. Compared to these old gold core experts, there was definitely a big gap. This year's end-of-year inner sect disciple competition was a heaven-sent opportunity to deal with him in a dignified manner. When Lin Yi heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. He had already faintly smelled the smell of a conspiracy. However, since this was an official arrangement, he couldn't say much. He could only nod his head in agreement and stand aside as an audience. This news quickly reached the ears of Shanghai Laner. Although this little senior sister was naive, she was not stupid at all. She immediately went to find Shanghai Tianhua and wanted him to step in. Grandpa, it's really inexplicable. Little junior brother was actually arranged to participate in the end-of-year inner sect disciple competition. This is not fair at all. You still have the mood to practice calligraphy here. Why don't you step in and take care of it? Shanghai Laner shook Shanghai Tianhua's arm and pouted angrily. What's unfair about this? Lin Yi is now in the early stage of gold core, and in the last battle he directly defeated Su Zhaohe in one move. Even some inner sect core disciples can't reach this level. If he doesn't participate in the inner sect competition, is he going to participate in the newcomer competition? Little Lan, do you think that's fair to other newcomers? Shanghai Tianhua smiled disapprovingly. Shanghai Laner was dumbfounded by the question. After choking for a while, she said unwillingly, but little junior brother is still a newcomer after all. You can't specially target him just because he's powerful, right? Little Lan, although Lin Yi was specially targeted at the same time, he also got the title of inner sect core disciple. It's not a loss for him, right? What's more, in this old man's opinion, it's hard to meet a good opponent. Instead of wasting time in the welcome pavilion, it's better to have a good fight with these inner sect core disciples. To be able to get this opportunity, I think he's looking forward to it. Shanghai Tianhua continued to write and said with a smile. But even if he doesn't participate in the inner sect competition, little junior brother can still become an inner sect core disciple. This can't be counted as a reward. Shanghai Laner still felt unfair for Lin Yi. Since little Laner said so, it seems that we have to give Lin Yi some real benefits. Shanghai Tianhua shook his head helplessly, and then said with a smile, so, if Lin Yi can shine in this inner sect competition and get a ranking, I will guarantee him the position of the third pavilion master of the welcome pavilion. That's all right, right? Chapter 4188. The third pavilion master of the welcome pavilion was a position that was recognized as gilded. It had always been in high demand. Even the inner core disciples might not be able to fight for it. If a newcomer like Lin Yi could fight for it, it would indeed be a great benefit. The third pavilion master of the welcome pavilion? Shangguan Laner tilted her head and thought for a while, then reluctantly nodded and said, that's more like it. Grandpa, you can't go back on your words. Let's pinky swear. Okay, let's pinky swear. The old saying that girls are outgoing is really true. Shangguan Tianhua shook his head helplessly and said, but let's make it clear first. This matter is only between you and me. You can't reveal it to Lin Yi in advance, understand? I know. Shangguan Laner stuck out her tongue cutely. A few days later, the annual year-end competition of the inner disciples finally began. Lin Yi went to the competition venue according to the notice he had just received. This place was not unfamiliar. It was the place where he defeated Su Zhaohe in one move last time, the North Island Arena. However, to Lin Yi's great surprise, this time the newcomers of the welcome pavilion were not only him, but also Meng Tong. Looking at Meng Tong with flowing white hair in front of him, Lin Yi could not help but be secretly shocked. This guy's strength was actually at the early stage of the gold core realm. How was this possible? If it wasn't for the golden finger that never made a mistake, Lin Yi even couldn't help but wonder if his eyes were playing tricks on him. During this period, Meng Tong and Su Ling rushed out together, but they rarely met in the welcome pavilion. Lin Yi hadn't seen this person for a long time. However, the last time Su Lingchong brought people to stop him, Meng Tong was also present. At that time, this guy's strength was only at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Now, less than 2 months had passed, and he had actually become a master at the early stage of the Gold Core realm. Wasn't this too strange? Although Lin Yi himself was an abnormal precedent, it was all kinds of adventures and the best quality medicinal pills. There were also all kinds of heaven-defying golden fingers. It couldn't be said that Meng Tong also had so many trump cards, right? What made Lin Yi even more surprised was that at this moment, Meng Tong was walking with Su Lingchong. When they talked, they seemed to vaguely mention the word dual cultivation. Dual cultivation? Lin Yi was surprised. These two were inseparable, but the problem was that they were both men. Even if Su Lingchong was erased, he wouldn't be able to get rid of him. At most, he was neither a man nor a woman. He couldn't be considered a woman, right? How were they going to dual cultivate? It was really strange. In addition, seeing that Meng Tong was also participating in the inner court competition, Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. This meant that he was forced to participate in the inner court competition. Even if it was really Su Lingchong's doing, this young Master Su at least had not reached the point where he could cover the sky with one hand. Otherwise, there was no need to let Meng Tong follow him as a foil. Moreover, in fact, Lin Yi did not have much resistance to this inner court competition. The inner court core disciples were all masters of the gold core stage. This was a rare opportunity for actual combat experience. He couldn't ask for more. Maybe when the inner court competition was over, the opportunity to break through would come. From then on, he would break through the bottleneck in one fell swoop and become a master of the early gold core stage. That was a great thing. Arriving at the North Island Arena at this time, there were already dozens of people sitting in the surrounding stands. All of them were standing tall and could not be underestimated. These people were obviously masters of the gold core stage. At this time, there should be no idle people waiting here. Lin Yi guessed that the people present should be the core disciples of the 3 pavilions who participated in this inner court competition. Although not all the people had arrived, but at this time, there were at least 70 masters of the gold core stage who had gathered here. In the end, it might even reach 80 or even nearly 100 people. Any master of the gold core stage would be an elite existence in other sects and forces. The 3 pavilions deserved to be the behemoth that dominated the entire North Island. Such a deep foundation was really not a trivial matter. In Lin Yi's view, the 3 pavilions were so powerful that even compared with the top sects in the Middle Island, they were not the slightest bit inferior. It could be seen that the other 4 islands of the so-called Heaven Stage 5 islands were definitely not as simple as the subsidiaries of the Middle Island. The inner court disciples had not yet arrived. Like the others who had already arrived, Lin Yi simply found an empty seat to sit down and wait. At the same time, he paid attention to the people present. The opponents that he would face next were among these people. While Lin Yi was observing his opponents, the newcomer competition of the Welcoming Pavilion finally came to an end after a few days of fierce competition. However, although it was fierce, in fact, there was a clear distinction between the strong and the weak. Even if everyone was on the same starting line when they first came in, after a year of tug-of-war, their strength was already worlds apart. Even if Lin Yi and Meng Tong, who were monsters in the early stage of the gold core stage, were excluded, the remaining newcomers were still clearly ranked. Taking the newcomers of the Blue Cloud Pavilion as an example, Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai, Li Jingming, and Mu Rongzhen were all masters in the early stage of the Foundation establishment stage. They were undeniably in the first echelon, followed by the rest of the people. As a matter of fact, the results of the newcomer competition did not have any surprises. Xiao Ran won the first place without any commotion, while Xiao Hongkai and Mu Rongzhen were both injured in the fight, and they ended up tied for second place. As for Li Jingming, he quietly ranked 4th. With Li Jingming's true strength and foundation, even if he was not on the same level as Xiao Ran, he was definitely not below Xiao Hongkai and Mu Rongzhen. It was just that he was afraid of the blood feud that he had, so he did not dare to show off too much and deliberately reserved his strength. Anyway, as long as he could lock in the top 5, he could become an official disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. As for the first place that everyone yearned for, he did not care at all. Other than strength, everything else was illusory. In the end, Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai, Mu Rongzhen, Li Jingming, and another newcomer of the Blue Cloud Pavilion became official disciples of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. As for the other newcomers who failed in the competition, they could only stay in the Welcoming Pavilion to do odd jobs. Newcomers like Cha Wu, who had not yet reached the Foundation establishment stage, were even more miserable. Long before the newcomer competition began, they were sent to Jade Spirit Hall to mine. It was an unspeakable tragedy. As for the Soaring Sky Pavilion and Mysterious Pavilion, the final results were also uneventful. What was worth mentioning was that the people who came from the common world, Soaring Sky Pavilions Kong Ming Ming and Zhong Pingliang, Mysterious Pavilions Dongfang Badeo and Lawless Fist, had all successfully become official disciples of their respective sections. In addition, there was also the Blue Cloud Pavilions Xiao Ran and Lin Yi, the heaven-defying freak. Putting aside their performance on the other islands, at least in the northern region, the performance of the common world people could be said to be brilliant. They completely trampled on the local newcomers of Sky Tier Island, causing a wave of discussion in the streets, and changing people's perception of the common world quite a bit. Chapter 4189. The newcomer competition of the Welcoming Pavilion had come to an end, but the end-of-year competition of the Inner Disciples had just begun at the North Island Arena. The inner core disciples of the three pavilions were all present, but what surprised Lin Yi was that not all of the hundreds of Golden Core stage experts present were dressed as inner disciples. Some of them were dressed as outer disciples, but their strength had reached the Golden Core stage. Listening to the discussion of the crowd, Lin Yi suddenly understood that the inner disciple competition of the three pavilions was not limited to inner core disciples. Even outer disciples could compete on the arena as long as they were strong enough. If their strength and performance were outstanding, they might be chosen by some big shot and be accepted as a registered disciple. From then on, they would have a meteoric rise. There were many such precedents. For the many inner disciples present, the inner disciple competition was also extremely important. This was a targeted assessment of them by the three pavilions. Whether their performance was good or bad was directly related to the allocation of cultivation resources for the next year, so they could not take it lightly. Finally, this year's inner disciple competition officially began. According to the practice of previous years, the person who presided over the inner disciple competition was a senior member of the Elders Guild. This year it was Su Lingcheng's grandfather, Su Yuanzheng. The rules of this inner disciple competition are very simple. It's arena battles. Similar to previous years, this year's arena battles are divided into two parts, 1-on-1 and 2-on-2. Su Yuanzheng looked around at all the disciples in the Golden Core stage and announced loudly, "I think you can understand this. After all, after entering the inner sect, it's not just a test of individual strength, but also a test of teamwork." Hearing this, the people in the audience immediately discussed and nodded frequently. After entering the inner sect and becoming a core disciple, they often had to go out to carry out high-level missions, which were extremely difficult and dangerous, and often required teamwork to complete. No matter how strong a person was, if they did not know how to cooperate with others, it would not work. Whether it's 1-on-1 or 2-on-2, only the top 50 can get corresponding battle points. The first place gets 50 points, the second place gets 49 points, and so on. The sum of the two results is the final result of this inner disciple competition. If the final result is below 50, then even if you are not directly eliminated from the inner sect, the cultivation resources for the next year will not be given any preferential treatment. "You won't get any preferential treatment," Su Yuanjing looked at everyone and said. When all the inner court disciples on the spectator stand heard this, their expressions couldn't help but become serious. When one reached the gold core stage, it was far more difficult to improve than when one was in the foundation establishment stage. If one didn't have the assistance of a large amount of cultivation resources, then no matter how hard one worked, it would be difficult to improve even an inch in a few decades of closed-door cultivation. If he really fell out of the top 50, it would mean that he would only be able to obtain the most basic cultivation resources. It would be good if he could guarantee that he would not fall. As for the next level, don't even think about it. Alright, those are the rules. You can go back and prepare yourselves. You have 5 days to choose your teammates. The competition will officially begin in 5 days. After Su Yuanjing finished speaking, his gaze paused in Lin Yi's direction meaningfully. Then he turned around and left the stage with a playful expression. There were nearly 100 Golden Core stage inner core disciples present. Some of the outer sect disciples who came to challenge had friends and acquaintances, and they all sat together in 2s and 3s. Only Lin Yi was alone and there was no one around. At this time, Lin Yi himself had already realized the problem. He finally understood that he was inexplicably called to participate in the inner sect competition. It was most likely Su Lingcheng's doing behind the scenes. His grandfather was the person in charge of this inner sect competition. It would be easy for him to do something. It was really sinister. With Lin Yi's strength and confidence, Even if he had just advanced to the early gold core stage, he would not be afraid of a one-on-one battle with these inner core disciples. But the problem was that there was also a two-on-two battle. What should he do? There were nearly 100 people present. Other than Su Lingchong, Meng Tong and Nan Tianba, who was his archenemy, Lin Yi didn't even know a single one of them. Not to mention any acquaintances. Who could he find to team up with? Even with the halo of the newcomer king, he had attracted a lot of attention when he killed Su Zhaohe. But after all, he was still a newcomer. His strength was at the bottom of the crowd. Moreover, the people present were not familiar with him at all. There was no cooperation or tacit understanding between them. Even if some people found him pleasing to the eye, the problem was that if they rashly teamed up with a newcomer who didn't know anything, what if they became cannon fodder? This was not a joke. The risk was too great. But if he couldn't find anyone to team up with, in theory, he could still participate in the team competition. At that time, Lin Yi would have to face a one-on-two situation. Unless these inner sect disciples received some benefits and secretly went easy on him, there was no chance of winning. Even if Lin Yi was the strongest golden core stage expert who had a perfect breakthrough, he had just stepped into the golden core stage. If he was in the middle stage of the golden core stage, there was still a possibility of one-on-two. But he was in the early stage of the golden core stage. Su Lingchong and Meng Tong looked at each other and smiled as they saw Lin Yi frown speechlessly. This time Lin Yi had really been tricked by them. Hee Chong, this time you really gave him a big problem. I've known this guy for a year, but I've never seen him so troubled. Today I've learned something new. Meng Tong said with a smile, taking pleasure in other people's misfortune. Brother Meng, this is just a small punishment. It's just an appetizer. There are still many opportunities in the future. I must make him wish he was dead. Su Lingchong curled his lips with a vicious expression. It's best if I can draw him directly this time. At that time I can take revenge. Meng Tong nodded coldly. Since his temperament changed greatly, although Meng Tong didn't show that he was gnashing his teeth when facing Lin Yi, it didn't mean that his hatred was worn away. On the contrary, every time he felt the pain of his heart being broken, his hatred for Lin Yi would deepen. He didn't show it in the past because he knew that he didn't have this strength. But now that he was accompanied by Su Lingchong, the situation was completely different. He was now also an early-stage golden core stage expert. Although he might not have a 100% chance of winning if he faced Lin Yi one-on-one, but if there was a middle-stage golden core stage Su Lingchong, killing Lin Yi would be a piece of cake. He was already hungry and thirsty. Although my grandfather is the person in charge of the inner court competition this time, the drawing of lots is supervised by the Elders Association. It's extremely difficult to tamper with it. Whether I can draw Lin Yi or not, it still depends on luck. Su Lingchong shook his head, and then his expression turned solemn. It's best if I can draw him, but if I can't draw him, I can't lose the bigger picture because of a small gain. The inner court competition this time is the key. As long as I can shine brightly, coupled with my grandfather's operation behind the scenes, it's not impossible to directly get the position of the inner court's second senior brother. Chapter 4190. Su Lingchong was now an expert in the middle stage of the gold core stage, and the position of the Soaring Sky Pavilion steward was a position that belonged to the outer sect disciples. According to the rules, he could not continue to occupy it. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happened, he would definitely join the inner sect. With his ambition and means, it was impossible for him to be willing to be a mediocre inner court disciple. Even if he didn't have the qualifications and resources to fight for the position of the eldest senior brother of the inner court, he could still try to be the second senior brother of the inner court. In this period of time, he had been attending various public events. In fact, this was his plan. He wanted to build momentum in advance. As long as he performed outstandingly in this intersect competition, coupled with his grandfather Su Yuanjing's secret operation, there was a great hope for him to challenge the position of second senior brother who was in charge of the intersect. As for Lin Yi, I'll have to deal with him sooner or later. He won't be able to escape from the palm of my hand. Su Lingchong smiled coldly. After Su Yuanjing finished the announcement, the many gold core stage disciples dispersed one after another. Lin Yi could only get up and return to the welcome pavilion, but he was very helpless and depressed. He did not know a single one of these inner sect disciples. Who was he supposed to team up with? Thinking about it carefully, in addition to the group of newcomers in the welcoming pavilion, there was also a rival like Su Lingchong. The people that Lin Yi knew in the three pavilions were not many, not to mention the inner sect disciples. Even the outer sect disciples were not many, and their strength had not reached the gold core stage. Shengguan Laner Huang Xiaotao, Song Jima Ragged King Senior Brother Bitter and Lu Bianren. Counting them, Lin Yi only knew these 6 people. Among the 6 of them, Lu Bianren was strong enough, but he hadn't shown his face for a long time. According to Senior Brother Bitter, it seemed that he had left the island for a mission. They couldn't even meet each other, let alone be partners. Senior Martial Brother Ku Bai was very busy with the Welcome Pavilion, and his strength was far from reaching the Gold Core stage, so he couldn't help much. As for the Tattered King, he was not good at fighting. Furthermore, he had to keep an eye on the forging pool. As for Song Jima, although he was loyal and had left a good impression on Lin Yi, he hadn't come into contact with him ever since Hukai left Tianwu Mountain. Furthermore, he wasn't strong enough. As a result, only Shengguan Laner and Huang Xiaotao were left. Among them, Shanghai Laner didn't participate in the year-end competition, nor did she have the slightest intention to pursue martial arts. In any case, she was an innocent girl. Since she didn't like to cultivate, Shanghai Tianhua couldn't do anything to her. He could only let her have her own temper. If Lin Yi asked her to form a party, she would probably be more than happy to help. Unfortunately, she was too weak and she wasn't good at fighting. Moreover, she was soft-hearted. It wouldn't be bad if they could be good friends. They could just fight monsters together. This time, the only one left was Huang Xiaotao. Lin Yi thought about it and felt that she was a rare and good candidate. According to the rules, he would be considered an official outer disciple. As long as they succeeded in forming their gold core, they could also participate in the inner disciple competition. Once they participated, they would be promoted to the inner disciple core disciple. The only difference was that if they performed well in the inner disciple competition, they might be accepted as a registered disciple by the elders. However, if they didn't perform well and no one was interested in them, they could only become an ordinary inner disciple and cultivate with the inner disciple steward. Therefore, as long as Huang Xiaotao could successfully form her gold core, she could participate in the inner disciple competition. Moreover, she had been doing trial missions in the Cultivators Guild of the North Island all year round. Her combat strength was also first class among experts of the same level. Lin Yi had witnessed this with his own eyes as early as when Hukai was in Mount Tianwu. Even if her jungle invisibility skill and powerful archery skill were not very good in the arena, as long as they were used properly, they would definitely be a threat that couldn't be underestimated. She would be a good teammate. Lin Yi immediately found Huang Xiaotao and told her about the inner disciple competition. So, I'm in urgent need of a teammate now, and I can't find a more suitable candidate than you. I wonder if you're willing to help me, Xiaotao? Lin Yi asked. Of course I'm willing. Huang Xiaotao immediately said happily. She knew that Lin Yi rarely asked for help. Now that he was willing to find her, it just showed her position in his heart. This was a good thing that she couldn't ask for more. That's great. Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. Although he had expected that Huang Xiaotao would be willing to help, and he also felt that she was an excellent teammate, what if she didn't like to fight with others? He couldn't force her to do something against her will. But my current strength is only at the late stage of foundation establishment. I can't participate in the inner disciple competition, can I? Huang Xiaotao suddenly realized after the excitement, and she lowered her head and said weakly, That's okay. Lin Yi had already prepared for this. Hearing this, he smiled faintly and said, I can guarantee that you can form your gold core within these 5 days. How is that possible? Huang Xiaotao suddenly opened her mouth and said incredulously, I'm still 2 levels away from the peak stage of foundation establishment, let alone the gold core formation. Even if everything went smoothly, she would need at least 3 to 5 years before she could start preparing to break through to the gold core formation. If any accidents happened halfway, it would take even longer. Forming her gold core within 5 days? This was simply a fantasy. In the knowledge of ordinary people, it was completely impossible. Do you still have your myriad golden dan fruit? Lin Yi smiled faintly. The reason why he looked for Huang Xiaotao was that Huang Xiaotao was not only suitable to be his teammate, but also essential. It's here. I haven't taken it yet. But even if I take it now, it's useless. This can only let gold core stage experts advance. It can't let me, a late stage of foundation establishment stage expert, directly become a gold core stage expert, right? Huang Xiaotao said in confusion. Then there's no problem. Come with me. Lin Yi smiled mysteriously. Without saying anything more, he hurriedly pulled Huang Xiaotao and ran directly to his cave residence. Huang Xiaotao was immediately embarrassed and blushing. While she allowed Lin Yi to pull her, she couldn't help but let her imagination run wild. What is Lin Yi going to do? He said these irrelevant words at first, then suddenly pulled her to his cave residence in the blink of an eye. Could it be that he wants to? Aya, it's so embarrassing. Thinking deeply, Huang Xiaotao's face suddenly turned red. Fortunately, she was wearing a veil. Otherwise, it would definitely attract passers-by to watch. The two hurriedly arrived at Lin Yi's cave residence. Lin Yi gestured for Huang Xiaotao to sit on the bed and said casually, "Hurry up. You take off your clothes first." Huang Xiaotao responded subconsciously. Then she suddenly woke up with a start. Take off my clothes? Yes, hurry up. We don't have much time. Lin Yi replied without turning his head while preparing at the side. Chapter 4191. Okay then. Huang Xiaotao agreed shyly. Her heart had long been tied to Lin Yi. She thought that she would be Lin Yi's woman sooner or later anyway. Although today was a little sudden, it was not unacceptable. Huang Xiaotao shyly took off all her clothes and then lay flat on the bed. She closed her eyes tightly, and her long eyelashes trembled uncontrollably. She was very nervous. Lin Yi turned his head and looked at her body that was as white as jade. He could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva secretly. At the same time, he was also stunned. He asked curiously, "Why are you lying down? Sit up." Huang Xiaotao opened her eyes and unconsciously looked at Lin Yi. Her face immediately became even redder. She said shyly, "That first time? Do it sitting? Will be uncomfortable." I heard. Don't girls always lie down? Lin Yi was immediately speechless. Only then did he realize that Huang Xiaotao had misunderstood him. Just now, he was wholeheartedly thinking about improving Huang Xiaotao's strength. His mind was full of leveling up. He did not think about this aspect at all, nor did he pay attention to Huang Xiaotao's expression. He did not expect to be misunderstood like this. But now that he was suddenly reminded like this, and then looked at Huang Xiaotao's beautiful body, it was as if she was a ripe forbidden fruit waiting to be plucked by him. It was really tempting. I actually did not ask you to take off your clothes because of this. Lin Yi spent a lot of effort to forcibly move his eyes away from Huang Xiaotao's body. He secretly swallowed his saliva and explained, "I want to help you improve your strength. According to previous experience, because the true qi in your body suddenly surges, it may cause your clothes to explode. So, I asked you to take off your clothes first." So that's how it is. Huang Xiaotao was extremely surprised. Lin Yi could actually help others improve their strength for no reason. This kind of thing was simply unheard of. However, Huang Xiaotao couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Even if it wasn't for that matter, Huang Xiaotao was still a little disappointed. But now that she had taken off her clothes and the opportunity was right in front of her, why didn't Lin Yi not take advantage of the opportunity to take her? Was she so unattractive that he actually wasn't tempted after seeing her? As the saying goes, a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. The focus of a woman's attention is never something that a man can imagine. Unbeknownst to him, Lin Yi was now thinking about the inner sect competition. From being inexplicably summoned to participate in the inner sect competition, to discovering that Su Yuanjing was personally hosting it, and now he was forced to find teammates. The meaning of the conspiracy was already very obvious. A little carelessness and he might be tricked by Su Lingchong. Now that he thought about it, it was no wonder that Su Lingchong and Meng Tong were a couple. No matter where they went, they would bring Meng Tong with them. Moreover, Meng Tong's strength had suddenly soared to the early stage of gold core. This was clearly the rhythm of him forming a team with Meng Tong. But he was alone. How could he find someone to form a team with in such a short time? If it wasn't for the fact that it could increase one's strength. If Huang Xiaotao didn't have the myriad golden pill fruit, Lin Yi would have really been tricked by Su Lingchong this time. If he was really forced to fight 1 against 2, he would be helpless. Then he would really become the laughingstock of the 3 pavilions. While Huang Xiaotao was still letting her imagination run wild, Lin Yi was already ready. Without saying a word, he immediately grasped the pulse on Huang Xiaotao's wrist and began to circulate the art of dragon mastery. To increase her strength. You just need to circulate the mantra. Okay. Feeling the warm vital qi that was continuously channeled into her body from Lin Yi's palm, Huang Xiaotao watched helplessly. Huang Xiaotao watched helplessly as it rapidly fused with her own essential energy, growing steadily bit by bit. Only then did she finally cast aside all those miscellaneous thoughts, and her entire person was shocked. This was not an illusion but a real increase in strength. This move of Lin Yi was simply a godly skill that defied the natural order. After 2 hours, Lin Yi slowly withdrew his palm. At this moment, Huang Xiaodao's strength was impressively already at the perfected foundation establishment stage. What was even rarer was that Huang Xiaotao was calm and composed at this moment. The vital qi in her body was like an arm, without the slightest feeling of being strained. One must know that even after taking a supreme-grade elixir, this kind of sudden increase in vital qi would take at least a few days to be able to control. This move of Lin Yi's was really superb. You first rest here and consolidate your strength. Give me the myriad golden pill fruit, and I will open the furnace to refine the golden pill for you. When you take it, you can break through to the golden core stage in one go. Lin Yi instructed. Oh. Huang Xiaotao nodded obediently. She immediately took out a small wooden box from her clothes, which contained the myriad golden pill fruit, and handed it to Lin Yi. However, after that she suddenly came to her senses. What? Lin Yi could also refine the golden core stage golden pill? Just as she was about to ask, a situation arose. On the other side, Lin Yi had just nodded and was ready to start refining the elixir. At this moment, someone suddenly touched the cave residence's restriction outside the door. Huang Xiaotao was suddenly shocked. She was now naked, and it would not be good if she was seen by others. She quickly shrank under the quilt on the bed and wrapped herself tightly, not daring to show her head. Lin Yi frowned. Originally he did not want to pay attention to it. Right now, refining the golden core stage golden pill for Huang Xiaotao was the most important thing. Everything else was fleeting. And normally the people who would come to find him were Shanghai Laner, senior brother Ku Bai and the others. When they found that no one agreed, they would naturally leave, and it would be fine after a little explanation. What Lin Yi did not expect was that the person who came had no intention of giving up. Not only did he not retreat, but he also touched the restriction more violently. If this continued, perhaps the next moment, he would directly destroy the cave residence's restriction. After all, this was just a newcomer's cave residence, and the level of the restriction was very low. Anyone with a slightly higher strength could easily destroy it. In desperation, Lin Yi could only get up and open the door. However, the two people standing at the door made his eyelids twitch. It was actually Su Lingchong and Meng Tong. Pretentious leader, you took so long to open the door. What are you doing sneakily hiding inside? Meng Tong glanced disdainfully at Lin Yi and smiled sinisterly. After holding it in for so long, now it was finally the time to hold his head up high. At this moment, his heart could be said to be indescribably refreshed. Even the haze of the heartbreaking pain that happened twice a day could be temporarily left behind. In his eyes, the day of Lin Yi being stepped on by him was not far away. No matter how powerful Lin Yi was, he was only at the early stage of the gold core realm. He, Meng Tong, was also at the early stage of the gold core realm. Moreover, his strength was obtained through dual cultivation with Su Lingchong, so he was much stronger than the ordinary early stage of the gold core realm. Even if Lin Yi had the record of killing Su Zhaohe in one move, which was also not to be underestimated, he could cooperate with Su Lingchong. Once they fought, there was no room for discussion. Lin Yi's glorious days were gone forever. Chapter 4192. How is it, Lin Yi? Have you found a partner? Su Lingchong instead spoke complacently in a superior manner. If you really don't have one, this young master can open his mouth and introduce one to you. Of course, you can also directly admit defeat and give up the competition. After all, the inner court grand competition is no small matter. Even if you're lucky and don't die with this little strength of yours, it's easy for you to be crippled. That would be too miserable, don't you think so? Both of you came here just to tell me this? Lin Yi glanced at the two of them and said indifferently, then I really have to thank both of you for your good intentions. I can find my own partner. We can be considered to be old friends that have dealt with each other for so long. There's no need to put on airs before us, right? There's no need to be courteous with this young master, and there's no need to be embarrassed. If you need, I can really introduce a partner to you. I can't just watch you become the laughingstock of everyone, right? How pitiful would it be if you can't even find a partner? Su Lingchong laughed wantonly. Of course, he wouldn't be so kind as to introduce a partner to Lin Yi. Not to mention it was impossible for Lin Yi to agree. If he agreed, then he would be courting death. He didn't have to guess to know that this partner would surely be a person of his, Su Lingchong's. That person was absolutely a real-time bomb, and there was no room for discussion. There's no need to say anything further. Both of you please return. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with the two of them and was about to directly close the abode. You're in such a hurry to make us leave? Meng Tong had a rare opportunity and was about to ridicule them when the corner of his eyes suddenly swept the scene within the abode, and he was instantly stunned. At this moment, Su Lingchong noticed that something was off within the abode as well. There seemed to be a person curled up within the blankets on the bed, and most importantly, there were women's clothes that had been taken off at the side. Su Lingchong's face instantly went grim, and he spoke swiftly and sternly. "Is it that bitch, Shangguan Laner?" Although he couldn't be considered as a man now and he didn't have any improper thoughts toward Shangguan Laner, his heart was still twisted. So long as he saw Shangguan Laner together with Lin Yi, he would be extremely displeased in his heart. His heart was extremely unhappy, and he wished that he could chop this adulterous couple into pieces on the spot. Without waiting for Lin Yi to react, Su Lingchong dashed in like an arrow right away, and without saying a word he wanted to flip the blanket off. This wasn't completely a momentary impulse, but he had a plan. In his opinion, if his guess was correct and the person on the bed was indeed Shangguan Laner, then as long as the matter of Lin Yi having an affair with her was exposed, it would definitely affect Lin Yi's future. If everything went well, it was even possible to ruin Lin Yi's future. It must be known that the customs of Heaven Stage Island were basically inherited from ancient times. Even cultivators were still very strict about men and women. If Lin Yi and Shangguan Laner were husband and wife, it would have been fine. However, the two of them did not have any status now, so they were unscrupulously together. If this matter was spread out, it would be more than just immoral. It was simply a slap to the face of the big boss, Shangguan Tianhua. At that time, they didn't even need to do anything. Shangguan Tianhua would be the first to not let Lin Yi off. Su Lingchong suddenly rushed in and even Lin Yi was caught off guard. Seeing that Su Lingchong was about to flip the blanket off, he reacted, and instantly chased after Su Lingchong in a flash. Even if it wasn't Shangguan Laner, Huang Xiaotao was completely naked inside. How could he let Su Lingchong, this bastard, see it? Lin Yi moved later but arrived first. He grabbed Su Lingchong's collar from behind, and then his true chi burst out and suddenly pulled. Su Lingchong was actually forcefully pulled by him, and he continuously retreated several meters before crashing into the wall with a bang. The strength was so great that it almost destroyed the cave abode's restriction. "Fuck, you're courting death." Su Lingchong fell into a state of confusion, and immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. He crawled up and was about to make a move. After all, he was a middle-stage golden core expert, and was only in a slightly sorry state. He didn't suffer any injuries at all. If he wasn't caught off guard, it wouldn't be possible for Lin Yi to succeed so easily. Meng Tong, who was standing beside him, was also eager to give it a try. This time it was Lin Yi who made the first move, and he couldn't blame anyone else for seeking death. The three great pavilions had a rule that one couldn't take the initiative to attack a fellow sect member, but there was no rule that said that one couldn't defend themselves when being attacked. However, before the two of them made a move, Lin Yi was the first to sneer and say, "Senior brother Su, the two of you are trespassing into the cave abode? The day of the inner court competition is just around the corner, and if this were to be known by the higher-ups, do you think you still want to participate in the inner court competition?" You? Su Lingchong was suddenly choked and speechless. Only then did he realize that he had trespassed into the cave abode first. According to the rules of the three great pavilions, no matter what he did, it was wrong and the other party could kill him. Meng Tong could only helplessly stop, but he still refused to leave just like that. His pair of eyes stared straight at the quilt on the bed, and he couldn't wait to reach out and pull the quilt open to see the appearance of the person inside. "What? The two of you still don't want to leave? Does this mean that you want me to ask someone to send you away?" Lin Yi stood between the two of them in the bed and said coldly, We'll see." Su Lingchong retreated in the direction of the door, pretending to be weak, but he secretly gave Meng Tong a look, indicating that the two of them should make a move at the same time from the left and right. As long as the quilt could be lifted and it was confirmed that the person inside was indeed Shangguan Laner, then even if he was charged with trespassing into the cave abode, it would be fine. At that time, the focus would definitely be on Lin Yi, and this guy would definitely die miserably. Lin Yi saw the intention of the two of them, and he secretly thought that it was not good. The other party was in the middle stage of the gold core realm, and the other was in the early stage of the gold core realm. If they really made a move at the same time, it was almost impossible for him to stop them with his strength alone. Just when the two of them were confronting each other, there was a sudden sound of footsteps outside the door. It was senior brother Ku Bai Xiao Ran, and the others who heard the vibration just now rushed over. "Junior brother Lin, are you okay?" The cave door was wide open, and Senior Brother Kubai looked at the tense confrontation in the room and couldn't help but ask worriedly. I'm fine, let's see if Senior Brother Su and Senior Brother Kubai are okay? Lin Yi sneered and glanced at the two of them. You're lucky today. Brother Meng, let's go. Su Lingchong saw that the situation was not good. Although he was unwilling, he could only leave with Meng Tong first. With so many people watching, if they continued to forcibly make a move, even if they really found out that it was Shangguan Laner, it would not be good for them. Because in that case the first thing that Shanghai Tianhua would do was not Lin Yi but the two of them. They couldn't bear such anger. Watching the two of them leave unwillingly, Lin Yi was relieved. After telling Senior Brother Kubai and the others, he finally closed the cave abode and let Huang Xiaotao out. Have they left? Huang Xiaotao carefully poked her head out of the quilt. Chapter 4193. It's alright, they're just two idiots. Don't worry about them. I'll immediately refine an Aurus core for you. When you become an expert of the Aurus core stage, we'll team up and beat them up. Lin Yi said with a smile. And then? Huang Xiaotao nodded repeatedly. Just now, when Su Lingchong was about to attack and tear off the blanket, she was really frightened. Luckily Lin Yi's reaction was fast enough. Otherwise, her pure body would have been exposed. Lin Yi immediately prepared to refine the pill. However, just as he sat down, he suddenly noticed something out of the corner of his eye. There seemed to be something extra in the corner of the wall. It just happened to be where Su Lingchong had hit the wall. It seemed like Su Lingchong had dropped it there. And looking at the appearance of the thing, it was pitch black like an ordinary stone, but it seemed to contain a profound secret. At first glance it seemed to be a little familiar. Lin Yi was stunned for a moment, but then his eyes suddenly lit up. He hurriedly walked over and picked it up. After carefully examining it, he was instantly overjoyed. It's actually a star ink stone. Su Lingchong has given us a big gift. After Lin Yi confirmed it, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Although the majority of this star ink stone had already been used up, and there wasn't much power of the stars in the ocean left, according to Lin Yi's previous experience, it was still enough for a person to make a perfect breakthrough. This time Huang Xiaotao could also make a perfect breakthrough and condense the 10,000 gold pill. Lin Yi was just worrying about this problem. After all, Huang Xiaotao could be considered one of them. If it was just a normal breakthrough, it would be a little regretful. He didn't think that this idiot Su Lingchong would actually take the initiative to deliver it to him. He really didn't know what to say. This was really a good person who thought of others and was anxious for others. From Su Lingchong to Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, this group of people had always done good deeds without leaving any traces. Every time they gave something, it would be just right, and each time it was bigger than the last. If not for the fact that he was straight, Lin Yi would have suspected that this group of people didn't really love him. Star ink stone? What's that? Huang Xiaotao blinked her eyes in her blankets. This is something you can't buy no matter how much spiritual jade you have. You'll know in a while. Lin Yi smiled and began to concentrate on alchemy. He had previous experience. Now that it was the second time to refine a Jindan golden pill, the process could be said to be safe and smooth. A myriad crossing golden pill fruit, together with the supplementary materials that Lin Yi had given him before, finally succeeded in refining a supreme-grade Jindan golden pill. Although there was no extra surprise, it was enough. Lin Yi immediately ordered Huang Xiaotao to consume this freshly refined top-grade golden core. At the same time, he helped her extract and condense the energy of the stars and the energy of the ocean from the star ink stone so that she could make a perfect breakthrough. In the eyes of others, a perfect breakthrough to the golden core realm was a shocking feat. It was even rarer to help someone make a perfect breakthrough. However, since Lin Yi had his own experience of making a breakthrough and had previously assisted Tian Chan and Sydney, he was very familiar with this matter. Time passed by in a flash. Huang Xiaotao, who was in the cave, had a look of disbelief on her face as she felt the changes in her body. Even though Lin Yi had explained it to her very clearly, she still felt that it was unreal. She felt like she was in a dream. I'm an expert in the early golden core realm? Huang Xiaotao spun around gracefully and said with excitement and fear. Before this, the gold core stage was only a level that appeared in her dreams, let alone the gold core stage. Even if it was the great perfection of the foundation establishment realm, it would be very good if she could reach it within 10 years. If she really relied on her own strength to condense the golden core, she would not have such great potential. Even if she could, it would be at least a few decades later. Although she had a myriad crossing golden pill fruit, it was a holy fruit of such a level. It was extremely difficult to find someone to refine a golden core realm golden pill. Even if she found an alchemist of a sufficient level, she might not be able to successfully refine the pill. After all, for most alchemists, the higher the grade of the pill, the lower the success rate. This was common sense that no one could avoid. If Huang Xiaotao really took this 10,000 crossing golden dan fruit out to beg others, not only would she have to spend a large amount of spirit jades, but the final result would most likely be that she would lose everything, losing everything she had invested. However, not only did Lin Yi know alchemy, but he also succeeded on the first try. Even if Huang Xiaotao did not have much experience, she at least knew that this golden core realm golden pill was a 5th grade pill, and it was the best among 5th grade pills. Ordinary alchemists could not refine it at all. For a moment, Huang Xiaotao looked at Lin Yi with a strange light in her eyes. Since the first time she met Hu Kai at Tianwu Mountain, she suddenly found that her life had become wonderful. Every time she saw Lin Yi, there was an unexpected surprise. The level of a golden core realm expert was so far away, but now it was easily achieved, and all of this was Lin Yi's doing. He had both strength and character, knew alchemy, and could help others achieve a perfect breakthrough. With all these things added together, Lin Yi was simply a mysterious man. Such a man was enough to move the heart of any girl. Especially when he was so good to her, Huang Xiaotao. Not only did he save her life, but he also helped her recover her appearance and increase her strength. It would be strange if Huang Xiaotao was not moved by him. Thinking of this, Huang Xiaotao suddenly tiptoed and kissed Lin Yi's cheek. Then she hid in Lin Yi's arms with a cry, her face blushing to the ears. Then, why don't you take me today? Huang Xiaotao blushed and mustered her courage, whispering in Lin Yi's ear. One had to know that Huang Xiaotao was naked at the moment. Such a peerless beauty was rubbing against his arms, and she said such heart-pounding words. If it was anyone else, they might not be able to control themselves. Even with Lin Yi's amazing self-control, he couldn't help but feel restless at this time. He even couldn't help but want to do Huang Xiaotao on the spot. However, when he thought about it, there was not much time left. The inner disciple competition was approaching. The matter between men and women is attractive, but it is also easy to make people intoxicated and lost. The inner disciple competition is coming soon. I should help you consolidate your strength as soon as possible. Let's study together and discuss how to cooperate when the time comes. Lin Yi relied on his last bit of willpower and swallowed his saliva with difficulty. Huang Xiaotao was stunned for a moment, and then she nodded repeatedly with an embarrassed expression. She blushed and felt embarrassed in her heart. I was indeed too anxious. At this critical moment, if I were to waste my strength because of this and cause the inner court competition that was right before us to be affected, then it would be too late for regrets. Chapter 4194. Oh. Huang Xiaotao lowered her head shyly. As she put on her clothes, she said, I'm good at very few martial arts techniques. You should have seen them when we were at Mount Hutsai Tianwu. It's the jungle concealment technique and archery technique. That's all. I see. Lin Yi couldn't help but ponder. He had already seen the power of this martial arts combination. In the jungle, it was simply a domineering existence. If it was used to deal with spirit beasts, it was a combination that could dominate the world with one move. However, if it was used to fight openly, this combination not only had no advantage, but would naturally fall into a great disadvantage. Whether it was the jungle concealment technique or the archery technique, once it was on the ring, the effect would inevitably be greatly reduced. And if it was 2 against 2, Huang Xiaotao would easily become the opponent's breakthrough. Lin Yi was not a defensive expert, it was difficult to take care of her. Their martial arts techniques were not very compatible with each other. At that time, it was very likely that Huang Xiaotao would not be able to help Lin Yi, but would instead become his burden. There were only 2 days left. The problem of mutual cooperation must be solved. Huang Xiaotao had just advanced to the early stage of the gold core realm. Even if it was a perfect breakthrough, her strength could be imagined. Among the many inner core disciples, she must be at the bottom. If her martial arts technique was also inferior, there was really no way to compete. In this way, the situation of the inner disciple competition was still not optimistic. Lin Yi couldn't help but ponder. With the combination of him and Huang Xiaotao, it would not work if he wanted to rely on pure strength to crush the opponent head-on. Moreover, because of the existence of Huang Xiaotao, the weak link, once they fell into a protracted battle, the situation would also be very disadvantageous. The only way was to end the battle quickly. And if he wanted to end the battle quickly, it was definitely impossible to rely on his own strength. He must also integrate Huang Xiaotao's strength. It was best for the two of them to find a way to complement each other and cooperate with each other to exert the greatest power. They would strive to kill one of the opponents in the beginning, then it would be easy to fight. Xiaotao, your mental cultivation method is of the fire attribute, right? Lin Yi suddenly asked. He had already noticed this when he infused genuine qi into Huang Xiaotao, but he still had to confirm it personally. Yes, that's right. Huang Xiaotao nodded. I can make an issue out of this. Let me think. Lin Yi closed his eyes and pondered for a moment. After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, he suddenly opened his eyes and slapped his thigh. That's right, it's this. At this moment he was thinking about the joint attack mental cultivation method he had obtained from the Zhuang clan in the secular world. If this mental cultivation method was only used by one person, it would only be of little value. However, if two people used it together, it would be extremely mysterious. Not only could it perfectly superimpose the strength of two people, but it could also be used by two people together. It could even achieve the astonishing effect of 1 + 1 being greater than 2, forming an even more powerful combination. As long as this joint attack was used properly, for example, when two experts with the strength of the early Golden Elixir realm attacked together, the power produced by the joint attack would be equivalent to that of the Golden Elixir realm. It was comparable to the full force attack of a late-stage Golden Elixir realm expert, and it was indeed extraordinarily powerful. What do you think? Have you thought of any good ideas? Huang Xiaotao's beautiful eyes shone brightly as she waited for Lin Yi to surprise her once again. There is a way, but what I thought of was a joint attack mental cultivation method. Now we only have 2 days. Lin Yi could not help but frown. Although the cultivation method could be changed once in the way of heaven, it was impossible for Huang Xiaotao to cultivate it again from scratch. Only 2 days was simply impossible. It was really too late. Moreover, he had not studied this joint attack mental cultivation method in detail. It was still unknown whether it could be used by a Golden Elixir realm expert. After all, this was a mental cultivation method that had been passed down in the secular world. It was very likely that it would be the same as other mental cultivation methods. After reaching the way of heaven, there would be no follow-up. Oh, then let's think of something else. It is indeed very troublesome to cultivate a mental cultivation method from scratch. It would be better if it was a martial skill. Huang Xiaotao comforted. That's right. Lin Yi's eyes lit up when he heard this. It was unrealistic for Huang Xiaotao to cultivate this joint attack mental cultivation method from scratch, but what if he created a joint attack martial skill? With the Universal Practitioner's Arts and the Universal Practitioner's Arts, it wouldn't be hard for him to create a combo attack as long as he used it as a reference. He had created quite a few techniques before, but they weren't combo techniques. Creating a joint attack martial skill on his own could be tailored for Huang Xiaotao. This was much easier than letting her cultivate a mental cultivation method again. Although 2 days were tight, if everything went smoothly it should be barely enough. Time was pressing. Lin Yi immediately began to practice in the cave according to his own ideas. Although it was only a short period of time, he had already thought of a very suitable martial skill in his mind, the Frenzy 8 trigrams palm. Huang Xiaotao cultivated a fire attribute mental cultivation method so she could naturally use the Frenzy Fire Fist. In theory she could also practice the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm. Of course, Lin Yi did not want Huang Xiaotao to practice the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm. Even if she could practice it, both of them could only use the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm. It could not be greater than 2, and it would not be enough to deal with the next inner disciple competition. What Lin Yi was going to practice and create at the moment was the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm. One person played 2 roles, continuously activating the genuine qi, fumbling and practicing. Huang Xiaotao stood aside and watched. Although she could not understand the martial skill moves he was practicing, she was now a new Gold Core Realm Master, so she could still feel the profoundness of it. Finally, Lin Yi slowly stopped after trying dozens of times. How is it? Huang Xiaotao asked quickly. Not bad, this is the move, the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm. Lin Yi nodded with satisfaction and then said, Come, I will teach you now. After saying that, Lin Yi immediately explained to Huang Xiaotao in detail, from the tricks of activating the genuine qi to the specific moves, he taught her step by step. There was only one purpose, which was to let Huang Xiaotao quickly master it in a short time. In terms of potential and talent, Huang Xiaotao was actually far superior to ordinary people. Otherwise, with her weak background, she would not have been selected to the Soaring Sky Pavilion together with Su Zhaohe. Lin Yi's new fiery 8 trigrams palm strike, on the other hand, was tailor-made for Huang Xiaotao. He guided her through it step by step, teaching her the ropes step by step. It didn't take long for Huang Xiaotao to get the hang of it. Although at the beginning she was only imitating and did not have much skill with her comprehension, as long as she practiced well with Lin Yi in these 2 days, when the inner disciple competition came, it would be enough to come in handy. Every time she practiced, Huang Xiaotao's understanding of the frenzy fire 8 trigrams palm deepened, and her shock and admiration for Lin Yi also increased. Chapter 4195. In such a short period of time, they were actually able to deduce and create a martial technique out of thin air. Although it was only a single move, it was a martial technique that was tailor-made for the 2 of them. Not to mention creating it, ordinary people would not even dare to think about it. But Lin Yi not only could create it out of thin air, but this frenzy 8 trigrams combined strike didn't have any signs of being put together at the last minute. Instead, it had a profound foundation, and its intricacies were comparable to those traditional techniques that had been passed down for hundreds and thousands of years. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, Huang Xiaotao wouldn't have believed that this was a technique that Lin Yi had created in such a short period of time. Not only could it increase one's strength, but it could also create a golden elixir, and now it could even create a technique. Other than admiring Lin Yi even more, Huang Xiaotao was a little dumbfounded. There was actually such a powerful person in this world. Even the legendary miracle doctor Zhang Liju wouldn't be as powerful as him, right? In fact, he might not even be as powerful as Lin Yi. After all, the legend of Master Zhang had only been passed down from mouth to mouth, while Lin Yi's miracles were something that she had seen and experienced with her own eyes. In the remaining time, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao stayed in the cave, practicing the newly created Frenzy 8 trigrams combined strike. Although it was a new creation, it was naturally easy for Lin Yi to master, and Huang Xiaotao was getting better and better at it. Her cooperation with Lin Yi was getting better and better, and when Lin Yi felt that it was almost complete, the 2 of them tried to activate it together, and the power was actually comparable to the peak of the golden elixir late stage. If it wasn't for Lin Yi's deliberate control, the power of this move would have been enough to pierce through the walls and seals of the cave. Huang Xiaotao herself was shocked, and Lin Yi nodded in satisfaction. Of course, he was confident in the technique he created, but he had only set the power at the golden elixir late stage, and he didn't expect that he had underestimated the power of this combined strike. Frenzy 8 trigrams combined strike. The power was equivalent to the full blow of a master at the peak of the late stage of the gold core realm, and the 2 of them were only at the early stage of the gold core realm. Such a martial arts technique was simply heaven-defying. If the 2 of them could increase their strength a little more, they would truly be invincible in the golden core stage. If they brought Huang Xiaotao along when they went out in the future, they could directly launch a joint attack at anyone they didn't like. Any golden core stage expert would be crippled even if they didn't die. Soaring Sky Pavilion. After returning from Lin Yi's cave abode, Su Lingchong and Meng Tong were not reconciled at all. They did not intend to let Lin Yi off so easily. It was not appropriate for them to continue staying there, so they specifically instructed Murong Zhen to keep an eye on Lin Yi's Immortal's cave. Once she saw Lin Yi or Shangguan Laner coming out, she should immediately report to them. However, the 2 of them did not expect that they did not have to wait for Murong Zhen's news at all. As soon as they returned to the Soaring Sky Pavilion's territory, they saw Shanghai Laner. The 2 of them were stunned on the spot and scratched their heads together. What the hell is going on? Why is the woman on Lin Yi's bed not Shangguan Laner? There were only a few female cultivators in the 3 pavilions. They could be counted on one hand. Except for Shanghai Laner, who else would hook up with Lin Yi? When Shanghai Laner saw the 2 of them, she turned her head in disgust. She pretended not to see them and was about to walk past them. At this time, Su Lingchong suddenly grinned. He took the initiative to walk up to her. Junior sister Lan, a long time no see. How have you been recently? Su Lingchong greeted her with a smile. It's nothing. Senior brother Su, what can I do for you? Shanghai Laner's eyelids suddenly twitched. This guy has not bothered me for a long time. Why is he sticking to me like a piece of sticky candy today? So annoying. As Shanghai Laner spoke, the little curly bear next to her dragged the big scissors from before and swaggered in the direction of Su Lingchong, cutting wildly. Those who were a little timid would probably be frightened by this little guy. Especially Su Lingchong. Last time, it was this giant scissors that cut off his family jewels. Now this scene was simply like sprinkling salt on his wounds. That was not enough. He had to add a little cumin. Even Shangguan Lan was startled by this scene. She didn't expect that the little fellow would dare to provoke her. She quickly stepped forward and shielded it behind her. If Su Ling Chong became angry out of humiliation and decided to kill the little curly bear, she wouldn't be able to stop him with her strength. However, to the great surprise of Shanghai Laner, Su Ling Chong was not angry. Instead, he smiled indifferently as if he did not take it to heart at all. If there is something, then there is really something. I think it is necessary to let junior sister Laner know. You should be mentally prepared first. Su Ling Chong pretended to be mysterious. Oh? What's the matter? Shanghai Laner frowned and looked at him. She thought to herself, this annoying guy, what tricks does he want to play? I just returned from Lin Yi's abode, and I found a woman on his bed. She had even taken off her clothes. Sigh. Su Ling Chong pretended to be regretful as he shook his head. But junior sister Lan don't be anxious. Some men like to fool around as long as they have a bit of strength. It's human nature. Lin Yi is a man as well, and he has needs in this aspect as well. The reason why Su Ling Chong deliberately told Shanghai Laner about this matter was none other than to create trouble for Lin Yi. Since the woman in his abode wasn't Shanghai Laner, then he would use this matter to sow discord and let Shanghai Laner cause trouble herself. At that time Lin Yi would surely be unable to take care of himself, and even if he participated in the inner court competition, his condition would surely be greatly reduced. Truthfully speaking, although Su Ling Chong was an intermediate stage Golden Core Realm expert now, and he was proud of his success and had made a strong return, but at least he had learned his lesson, and he didn't dare look down on Lin Yi. Now that he was dual cultivating with Meng Tong, he would surely be invincible in a dual fight, and there was no doubt about this. However, if it was a one-on-one fight with Lin Yi, even though he still had the certainty of winning, he still had to be careful. After all, no matter what, Lin Yi had instantly killed Su Xiaohe, who was an intermediate stage Golden Core Realm expert, with a single move. Su Xiaohe wasn't a simple figure, and if they were at the same level, Su Ling Chong admitted that he might not be able to win for sure. Thus, it could be seen that Lin Yi was similarly extraordinary and he had to be on guard. So, with this opportunity to discuss Lin Yi, Su Ling Chong naturally wanted to make use of it. If he was able to make Shanghai Laner fall out with him directly, or even turn them into enemies, then it couldn't be any better. Even if he couldn't do that, he could at least distract Lin Yi, so why not? Really? That's great. Shanghai Laner's reaction greatly exceeded his expectations, and not only did she not have the slightest intention of getting angry, she was instead extremely happy. Chapter 4196. Ah. Su Ling Chong was dumbfounded. He and Meng Tong looked at each other as if they had seen a ghost. Su Ling Chong still didn't give up and asked tentatively, Junior sister Lan, aren't you angry at all? Angry? Angry for what? Why should I be angry? Shanghai Laner looked at him strangely, and then continued to jump excitedly. That's great, I'll go and have a look now. After that, Shangguan Lan grabbed the little curly bear and walked briskly toward the welcoming pavilion, leaving Su Ling Chong and Meng Tong dumbfounded and unable to close their mouths for a long time. Chong, is that Shanghai Laner confused because of anger? Or is she just a silly girl? Meng Tong couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Looking at Shanghai Laner's cheerful back, it didn't seem to be fake. Besides, such a spoiled young lady didn't have such deep shrewdness and acting skills. Maybe. Su Ling Chong was also speechless. After a while, he shook his head hard and said, Forget it, let's not care about that silly girl. Brother Meng, the inner disciple competition is around the corner. Let's go back and practice together. The inner disciple competition is full of masters. With our current strength, if we don't cultivate tacit understanding, it will be difficult to shine. Well, okay Chong, let's go back and practice together now. In this inner disciple competition, we must amaze the world with one brilliant feat. Meng Tong immediately said with high fighting spirit. The inner disciple competition was not only the perfect stage for Su Ling Chong to announce his strong return, but it was also the first opportunity for Meng Tong, or more accurately, the Meng Tong who had changed his temperament greatly, to appear in the whole three pavilions for the first time. There was no room for failure. After saying that, the two immediately left hand in hand, leaving the passers-by looking at the two's overly intimate back, pointing at them and discussing in private. They walked lightly all the way to Lin Yi's cave residence. Shanghai Laner took the little curly bear to touch the cave residence's restriction. Chapter 4197. Lin Yi was secretly shocked at that time, but he did not think deeply about it. While Lin Yi was observing the surroundings, the gold core stage experts around him were also secretly watching him. To be more precise, they were observing Huang Xiaotao, who was wearing a veil. In the 3 pavilions of the North Island, there were very few female cultivators, and those who could reach the gold core stage were even rarer. Looking at the whole audience, Huang Xiaotao was the only female cultivator participating in the inner core competition. Apart from her, there was only Shanghai Laner who was watching from the audience stand. It was impossible for Huang Xiaotao not to be noticed. That Huang Xiaotao, how did she suddenly become an early-stage gold core stage expert, and even with Lin Yi? Su Lingchong could not help but be surprised. He had a good understanding of the gold core stage experts of the 3 pavilions, but he had never thought that Lin Yi would find such a partner, which really caught him off guard. Lin Yi is really a playboy. He even wants such a disfigured woman. He really doesn't care about anything. Meng Tong sneered at the side. Humph, I think he is cornered and forced to find such a partner. Although I don't know when Huang Xiaotao formed the gold core stage, but looking at her momentum, she should have just broken through not long ago, and her strength is very limited. Su Lingchong sneered and said, Hee hee, 2 early-stage gold core stage experts, they don't even know how they will die. Let's just watch. While the crowd was discussing, the inner core competition finally officially began. Today the first one, Feng Tian, was going to fight one-on-one, and the opponent was decided by drawing lots in public. What was interesting was that Lin Yi, the famous newcomer king of the Welcome Pavilion, was the first to be drawn to the arena, and his first opponent was Yu Daong, an outer official disciple from Blue Cloud Pavilion. Yu Daong was an early-stage gold core stage expert from Blue Cloud Pavilion who had recently emerged. Before, he had always been unknown and no one had ever paid attention to him. In comparison, Lin Yi, the newcomer king, was much more eye-catching. Everyone's gazes were focused on Lin Yi. Some were playful, some were contemptuous, and some were indifferent. Everyone wanted to see for themselves how capable Lin Yi, the newcomer king, was. With his hands behind his back, Lin Yi stood calmly at the side of the arena. When Yu Daong stepped onto the stage, his originally calm aura suddenly skyrocketed. A moment ago, it was still calm and tranquil, but in the next moment huge waves surged into the sky, causing everyone's expression to change. Feeling such a terrifying aura, Yu Daong's expression suddenly showed a bit of hesitation and struggle. They were both at the early stage of gold core, but comparing their auras, how was it like they were at the same level? The first round of the inner disciple competition, Lin Yi versus Yu Daong, begins. The judge announced. This was actually an expert of the nascent soul stage. At this moment he wasn't suppressing his strength, but rather revealing it to the fullest. This was also the first time that Lin Yi had seen an expert of the nascent soul stage in the 3 pavilions. As for the other big shots, usually he didn't show his strength. His golden finger couldn't be used beyond his level, so he didn't know the strength of Shanghai Tianhua and the others. He only knew that their aura was threatening. Everyone in the arena looked solemn at the same time. They were ready to observe Lin Yi's strength. Although Yu Daong of Blue Cloud Pavilion was not strong, Lin Yi was only at the early stage of gold core after all. He should be able to deal with it. However, Yu Daong's next reaction was beyond everyone's expectations. Wait, I give up. Yu Daong suddenly raised his hands and shouted, his face flushed. For a moment, there was a sudden uproar in the arena. The sounds of ridicule and abuse were endless. However, Yu Daong still didn't change his original intention. After glancing at Lin Yi, he turned around and left the arena. This scene not only surprised everyone in the arena, but even Lin Yi himself was a little stunned. The first round was the most ruthless elimination round. Once lost, there was no need to think about what would happen next. Normal people would try their best to fight for even if there was only a 10% chance. Who would be like Yu Daong and directly give up? If Yu Daong was facing an expert in the late stage of gold core who was several levels higher than him, or even higher, it was understandable. However, Lin Yi was only in the early stage of gold core. Little did he know that even if they were both in the early stage of gold core, there was still a huge difference in their strength. Lin Yi was able to kill Su Xiaohe in one move. With Su Xiaohe's strength, it was absolutely not a problem for him to kill Yu Daong in one move. Letting him fight with Lin Yi, wasn't that courting death? Yu Daong still had this bit of self-awareness. As long as one's strength reached the early stage of gold core, so long as one participated in the inner court competition, then no matter what the final result was, one would surely be able to become an inner court core disciple in the end. The only difference was none other than whether one was fancied by a big shot of the higher-ups and was taken as an honorary disciple. That was all. Yu Daong had never had any background. Although he had extravagant hopes that one day he would be able to obtain the favor of a big shot, he knew that this was basically extravagant hopes. So long as he was able to advance to become an inner court core disciple, he would have achieved his objective this time. If he thought too much about other things, it would be purely fleeting and would only harm himself. Trash. Coward. Su Lingchong, who was below the arena, couldn't help but curse hatefully when he saw this. Although he didn't expect this unknown Yu Daong to be able to directly kill Lin Yi, he was still an early-stage gold core expert after all. At least he had to cause some trouble for Lin Yi. What the hell was the point of directly admitting defeat? Meng Tong, who was at the side, also gnashed his teeth in hatred. The inner court competition was such a crucial occasion, yet he made his opponent surrender without a fight. What kind of prestige was this? The reputation of Lin Yi, the newcomer king, was really resounding now, causing others to be envious to the point of going mad with jealousy. On the other side of the spectator stand, Shanghai Laner was extremely excited. Although she was very confident in Lin Yi, those that were able to participate in the inner court competition were all gold core experts. This was a completely new battlefield for Lin Yi, and it would be a lie to say that she wasn't worried in the slightest. Even if Lin Yi was able to instantly kill Su Zhaohe and possessed formidable strength, he wasn't someone that was easy to deal with. Even a rabbit would bite when cornered, not to mention a dignified gold core expert. Even if Lin Yi won in the end, what if he was injured? She didn't expect this Yu Daong to be so tactful. He took the initiative to admit defeat without saying a word. Little junior brother passed the stage easily without any surprise. However, Shanghai Tianhua, who was pulled to the side to watch the battle, looked indifferent from the beginning to the end, without any surprise. Hehe, Grandpa, do you think this Yu Daong is a friend of little junior brother's acquaintance? Otherwise, why would he admit defeat so easily? Shanghai Laner was happy for Lin Yi while she couldn't help but ask curiously. With her identity, the inner court competition was nothing new. She had seen the excitement many times before, but this kind of direct admission of defeat was very rare. Even if there were a few times, it was because there was a great disparity in strength between the two sides. This was the first time that an expert of the same level directly admitted defeat. Chapter 4198. Haha, you'll have to ask them that themselves. If he isn't, this old man will have to look at this Yu Daong even more highly. Shengguan Tianhua said with a faint smile. Ah, he is so cowardly. Grandpa, you still look up to him? Shanghai Laner could not help but be surprised. Although she was very happy that Yu Daong took the initiative to surrender, it was entirely because of Lin Yi. Normally she would look down on such a spineless person. Cowardly? It can be regarded as cowardly, but in other words, it can also be said to be wise. Yu Daong saw it very clearly. Although both of them are in the early stage of gold core, he is not Lin Yi's opponent. Instead of taking a meaningless risk, it is better to admit defeat directly. This is also a kind of wisdom and courage. Shanghai Tianhua commented. This is wisdom and courage? I really don't understand. Shanghai Laner stuck out her tongue cutely. Shanghai Tianhua smiled and did not continue to say more. People like Yu Daong would never grow to the height of Lin Yi in the future, but this did not mean that they were useless. This kind of people who knew when to advance and when to retreat were also rare talents. Even if they were not as brilliant as a genius like Lin Yi, there were many things that were safer and more reliable to let them do. Of course, this had already involved the use of manpower, which was not something that a little girl like Shengguan Laner could understand. Shanghai Tianhua naturally would not play the lute to a cow and waste his saliva. In the first round of the inner disciple competition, there were a total of 100 matches. All of them would end in one day and the top 100 would be directly determined. If it was simply one match after another, even if they did not stop until tomorrow morning, they would not be able to finish the matches. Therefore, the first round of the single competition was carried out at the same time. In the North Island Arena. Other than Lin Yi's arena, there were 4 other arenas on the side. 5 matches would be held at the same time, and Lin Yi's was the first to finish without a doubt. On the other 4 arenas, Lin Yi was the first to finish. At the moment they were fighting fiercely. Among these 4 matches, Huang Xiaotao happened to be in one of them. At this time, her opponent was also a new outer disciple in the early stage of Gold Core. His name was Wu Bufan, but he was not from Blue Cloud Pavilion. He was from Mysterious Pavilion. The luck of this draw was quite good. Looking at the whole arena, the early stage of Gold Core was the lowest, and his opponent was a new outer disciple in the early stage of Gold Core. However, this Wu Bufan was after all a disciple of Profound Secrets Pavilion, and he was also an early stage Gold Core expert. His experience was much more experienced than Clear Cloud Pavilion's Yu Daong. Under the premise that both sides had the same level of strength, experience could play a crucial role in a battle, and it could affect the outcome of the battle. Even if there was only a 5% chance, he would try his best to turn it into a 10% chance. And he would never admit defeat like you. He was not the famous newcomer King Lin Yi. In terms of experience, Huang Xiaotao was also a new expert in the early stage of Gold Core. Moreover, she was an outer disciple of Blue Cloud Pavilion with a weak foundation. In terms of experience, Wu Bufan, a disciple of Mysterious Pavilion, had a higher chance of winning. Both sides got into formation on the stage. Wu Bufan was still a little afraid of Huang Xiaotao. But when he saw Huang Xiaotao's bow and arrow, he suddenly laughed. This was not the deep mountains or forest. This was an empty arena with a radius of hundreds of feet. There was no cover and it was a one-on-one battle. Using a bow and arrow in this kind of situation, an expert of the same level could easily avoid it. Wasn't it a joke? Then, when the referee gave the order, Wu Bufan saw that Huang Xiaotao's figure began to gradually become blurred, but there was no way for her to completely disappear. He could see that this was clearly a concealment martial skill. However, in this kind of situation where there was no cover, it could not be used to its full effect. It could only make the figure slightly blurred. What was the use of this? Let me give you a piece of advice. This junior sister of Blue Cloud Pavilion should quickly admit defeat. Your martial skill and weapon are simply a disgrace in the arena. It's better to be sensible and go down yourself. Otherwise, you'll get injured for nothing, Wu Bufan said with the air of a senior. If it was said that the odds of winning were 60% to 40%, then after Huang Xiaotao revealed her martial skill and weapon, it was already 80% to 20%, or even 90% to 1%. In today's first battle, he, Wu Bufan, was already 90% sure of winning. I appreciate your kindness, but I still want to try. Under the veil, Huang Xiaotao's voice was calm. This time, she was suddenly pulled by Lin Yi to participate in the inner disciple competition. Although Huang Xiaotao did not think about getting a good ranking, as long as she could help Lin Yi in the 2-on-1 battle, she was already satisfied. However, this did not mean that she had no initiative in the 1-on-1 battle. She was soft on the outside but hard on the inside. Her character had never been weak. Even if she did not want to get a high ranking, she would definitely go all out. TSK, young people nowadays really don't know how to appreciate favors. Wu Bufan shook his head and curled his lips as he sneered. Fine, I'll let you understand today that this arena isn't a place that an ignorant woman like you should come to. After saying that, Wu Bufan suddenly made a move. However, Huang Xiaotao's movement was faster than him. Before he could move, a long black arrow had already whistled. The speed was far faster than his imagination. Huang Xiaotao's arrow speed was originally extremely fast. Now that her strength had reached the early stage of the Gold Core realm, it was naturally extraordinary. Especially in these 2 days, Lin Yi had specially taken time to teach her the technique of vital energy jet. Basically, the speed of the arrow had already reached the limit of the giant bow in her hand. An ordinary person would not be able to react at all. Fortunately, they were standing far away from each other at the beginning. Wu Bufan was finally able to react and barely avoided the first arrow. Even so, he could not help but be frightened and break out in cold sweat. If he was not careful, this arrow would really cut his throat. In the arena, life and death were indisputable. If Huang Xiaotao really killed him with this arrow, not only would she not have to bear any responsibility, but she would also be looked up to by others. This time, Wu Bufan did not dare to take it lightly. After avoiding the first arrow, he quickly took the opportunity to pounce towards Huang Xiaotao. It was common sense that archers were not good at close combat. As long as he could get close to her, Huang Xiaotao would still lose. However, Huang Xiaotao obviously would not let him get what he wanted so easily. Distance was an archer's lifeline. She understood this more than anyone else. In the past, in countless adventures in the jungle, there were several times when she was almost killed by spirit beasts at close range. In this aspect, she could be said to be experienced in hundreds of battles. Huang Xiaotao quickly moved her feet and shot an arrow from time to time, blocking Wu Bufan's path forward. Chapter 4199. Every single arrow was extremely precise and swift, forcing Wu Bufan to have no choice but to stop and dodge with all his might. After the time for an entire incense stick to burn, Wu Bufan exhausted a great deal of effort yet was still unable to catch up to Huang Xiaotao, and it was even to the extent that he wasn't even able to close the distance between them in the slightest. This unexpected scene of being unable to part from each other truly caused everyone below the arena to be shocked. Huang Xiaotao, this woman, seemed to be extraordinary. If they were in a jungle, Wu Bufan probably wouldn't even know how he died. However, although everyone thought highly of Huang Xiaotao, they still felt that Wu Bufan had a higher chance of winning. After all, this was a one-on-one battle. No matter how good Huang Xiaotao's archery was, it couldn't make up for this natural disadvantage. This stalemate situation couldn't be maintained forever. When Wu Bufan closed the distance, everything would be over. However, among the crowd, only Lin Yi didn't have the slightest worry. In his eyes, Huang Xiaotao would win this battle. Even if they were both in the early stage of the Gold Core realm, even if Huang Xiaotao's martial arts and weapons were not suitable for one-on-one battles, she was the strongest Gold Core realm expert who had a perfect breakthrough. She was definitely not an ordinary early-stage Gold Core realm expert like Wu Bufan. As time went by, this duel between Huang Xiaotao and Wu Bufan, which originally didn't attract much attention, gradually attracted the attention of the audience, and there was a lot of private discussion. Wu Bufan couldn't hold back anymore. Although most people were optimistic about him, Huang Xiaotao's bow and arrows didn't have eyes. If he was careless and touched by one of the arrows or even hit a vital position like the throat, it would be a joke. Gritting his teeth, Wu Bufan finally didn't dare to hide anything anymore. In an instant he increased his speed to the extreme. After closing the distance between him and Huang Xiaotao, he suddenly raised his hand and swung it in Huang Xiaotao's direction. A dark green light. Then, at a speed that was difficult to be seen by the naked eye, it went straight to the opponent's vital point. Hidden sword, a hidden sword that was poisoned with the world's strange poison. Unless there was a unique antidote, anyone who touched it would die. This was Wu Bufan's trump card that he had carefully prepared, and it was also his last card. He didn't want to use it in the first battle, but now he had no other choice. Wu Bufan specially practiced for several years. The speed of the hidden sword was not slow, and Huang Xiaotao had adapted to the rhythm of the previous unilateral suppression of the bow and arrows. For a moment he was unable to react. According to his calculations, there was at least an 80% chance that the hidden blade would succeed. Ding. The crisp sound of metal colliding rang out, accompanied by the gasps of surprise from the audience. Wu Bufan's wishful thinking had instantly fallen through. Huang Xiaotao had actually used her bow and arrow to block the fatal hidden blade in the sleeve head-on. Such a reaction. This level of precision was simply unimaginable. Could be called a godly technique. If it was anyone else in the arena, even if they were stronger than Huang Xiaotao, they wouldn't be able to do so. However, this move of using bows and arrows to block the hidden sword was something that they would never be able to do. If this wasn't a godly skill, what was? All of a sudden, everyone looked at Huang Xiaotao in a different light. Putting everything else aside, just this female cultivator's archery skills alone. He truly lived up to the name of a godly archer. However, Wu Bufan's experience was vividly displayed at this moment. He was even more shocked than everyone else, yet his footsteps didn't stop in the slightest, and he actually seized this critical moment to instantly catch up to Huang Xiaotao and arrive less than 3 m away from her. The dust had settled. No matter how brilliant and magical an archer's archery was, once they were in close combat they would definitely lose. Not only did the audience think so, but Wu Bufan also thought so. The corners of his mouth unconsciously curled into a proud smile. Although this Huang Xiaotao was powerful, he still had the last laugh. After all, the older the ginger, the spicier it was. At this moment, Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh because the outcome had been decided. A pitch-black bow and arrow suddenly pierced Wu Bufan's chest. Wu Bufan fell to the ground, still looking at Huang Xiaotao in disbelief. The audience was also dumbfounded. Even if they were beaten to death, they would never have thought that an archer would directly stab her opponent's chest after being in close combat. Furthermore, her movements were unusually skillful and coherent, without any signs of jerkiness. This woman simply didn't play by the rules. Unbeknownst to them, this move was completely created by Huang Xiaotao herself. It was an emergency move when a powerful spiritual beast was in close combat. Although it didn't seem like a technique at first glance, it was honed by life and death situations. It was almost an instinctive reaction, which was unusually practical and effective. "Sir Referee, does this count as my win?" Huang Xiaotao looked at Wu Bufan, who had fallen to the ground, and turned to ask the referee. Even the referee couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He then asked someone to carry Wu Bufan away for treatment, and at the same time, announced that Huang Xiaotao had won the first battle. "Xiaotao, you've won this battle beautifully and brilliantly." Lin Yi smiled as he walked up to congratulate her. Huang Xiaotao's performance in this round was indeed remarkable, and he couldn't help but praise her. Not at all, I was just lucky, that's all. Huang Xiaotao lowered her head shyly, but in her heart she was secretly happy for Lin Yi's praise. At this moment Shanghai Laner was also extremely happy for Huang Xiaotao. Lin Yi won without a fight, and Huang Xiaotao won so brilliantly. The two people that she cared about the most had a good start, so of course she was in a good mood. Shanghai Tianhua, who was sitting next to her, looked at Huang Xiaotao with an obvious look of surprise. Based on his experience and knowledge, there were very few things that could surprise him, but Huang Xiaotao's performance really surprised him. Huang Xiaotao's amazing archery skills and the last unexpected arrow were secondary. This performance only showed that Huang Xiaotao was very talented, but it was not enough to surprise Shanghai Tianhua. What Shanghai Tianhua really cared about was that when Lin Yi challenged Su Zhaohe a while ago, Huang Xiaotao was watching the battle beside him. At that time she was only in the late stage of foundation establishment, but now she suddenly became an expert in the early stage of gold core. Not only that, she was actually an expert with the strongest potential of a perfect gold core. Under normal circumstances it might not be obvious whether it was a perfect breakthrough or not, but with Shanghai Tianhua's shrewd eyesight, as long as Huang Xiaotao made a move, he would already be able to see some clues. First there was Lin Yi and now there was Huang Xiaotao. When did there become so many experts with the perfect gold core? While Shanghai Tianhua was bewildered, the first round of the single elimination battle on the ring was still going on. This time the one who went on the ring was Su Lingchong, who had been the focus of attention recently. Under the gaze of the audience, Su Lingchong calmly walked onto the ring. Chapter 4200. At the same time, he also released the powerful aura of the intermediate stage of the Golden Core realm without holding anything back. However, although the person in charge of the inner court competition was his grandfather, Su Yuanjing, Su Lingchong's luck in drawing lots this time could not be said to be good, and could even be said to be extremely bad. Because the opponent he drew was actually an extremely experienced inner court core disciple, and his strength was at the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm. An expert at the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm was absolutely worthy of the word expert when placed in the audience, but Su Lingchong was only at the intermediate stage of the Golden Core realm, and there was a gap of 2 whole levels between them. Even if he had a monstrous reputation, even if he had a deep background at this time facing the absolute gap in strength, what use was it? This was an experienced inner court core disciple, and his power and influence were completely ignored by him. Facing such a strong opponent, almost everyone was not optimistic about him, but Su Lingchong did not have the slightest bit of worry. Until the referee announced the start of the battle, the corner of his mouth still hung an extremely confident Lin Yi, who was below the arena, took a look at Su Lingchong's expression at this moment, and he could not help but be surprised. This expression did not seem to be faked. Could it be that this guy really has the strength to challenge someone 2 levels above him? Very quickly the battle began, and Su Lingchong's performance made everyone present dumbfounded. Facing the opponent, a late-stage Golden Core Realm expert, he, a middle-stage Golden Core Realm expert, actually suppressed his opponent from the beginning to the end. In front of him, his opponent actually did not have the slightest advantage, and was instead forced to retreat step by step, unable to turn the situation around until finally he was beaten down by Su Lingchong and the outcome was decided. For a moment the audience was silent. A middle-stage Golden Core Realm expert actually completely crushed a late-stage Golden Core Realm expert. Who would dare to believe this? But the bloody truth was placed in front of their eyes. Everyone could not help but believe that Su Lingchong, young Master Su, was actually able to crush his opponent 2 levels above him, and this strength was simply heaven-defying. Compared to everyone who was looking at each other in dismay, at this moment in Shanghai Tianhua. In his heart he was even more shocked because he suddenly discovered that this Su Lingchong was actually also a Golden Core Realm expert who had a perfect breakthrough. This discovery even made this top big shot of Shanghai Tianhua speechless. What exactly is going on with the 3 great pavilions this year? What kind of heaven-defying luck is this, and there are so many geniuses? That was not all. On the other side, although Meng Tong's strength was only at the early stage of the Gold Core Realm, he easily killed his opponent who was also at the early stage of the Gold Core Realm in a second. His performance was not as shocking as Su Lingchong's, but it was equally eye-catching. Another perfect Golden Core stage expert. Shanghai Tianhua was stunned. With the addition of Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao, there were now 4 perfect Gold Core experts. There were very few people who could make a perfect breakthrough and form the 10,000 Gold Core. Even in 100 years there wouldn't be one. It was because of this that they received the reputation of being the strongest golden core stage expert. However, all of a sudden 4 masters of the perfect gold core stage appeared, and they were all concentrated in the 3 pavilions of the North Island. This situation was so strange that it made people's hearts tremble. Even with Shanghai Tianhua's knowledge, he had never seen or heard of such a thing. As the top figure of the 3 pavilions in the North Island, Shanghai Tianhua was puzzled, and he couldn't help wondering if it was a coincidence. Or was there an invisible hand behind the scenes pushing for it? Otherwise, why would there suddenly be so many perfect gold core experts? Su Lingchong and Meng Tong. What kind of fortuitous encounter did these 2 guys have? I'm afraid it's because of that star ink stone. But it's the star ink stone. When did it become so much? It shouldn't be. Among the crowd, Lin couldn't help but frown. These 2 people were his sworn enemies, and they were thresholds that he had to cross head-on. Even though he'd already taken precautions against these 2 people when he met them earlier, he'd never imagined that these 2 people would actually become so troublesome to deal with. Especially Su Lingchong, he was actually strong to such a shocking extent. If he were to meet Su Lingchong one-on-one, unless Lin used his ultimate weapon, he wouldn't have much chance of winning. On the other side, Nan Tianba and the 2 Southern Sky Gate brothers were also watching the show from the crowd, admiring Su Lingchong's powerful strength. Nan Tianba was an inner core disciple of the early gold core stage. This time he was also participating in the inner disciple competition, but it wasn't his turn yet. He was waiting for the next step to draw lots. Although Southern Sky Gate's strength wasn't at the gold core stage, it wasn't difficult for him to sneak in and watch the show with his identity. Of course, if he was just an ordinary outer disciple, he wouldn't even be able to step within a few miles of the North Island's arena, let alone watch the inner disciple competition. After all, the strength of a gold core stage disciple could already be regarded as the foundation of a sect, and this had to be kept strictly confidential. Big brother, this young Master Su's strength is so heaven-defying. Do you think we should find a chance to curry favor with him? Otherwise, if we become enemies in the future, it won't be a joke. Southern Sky Gate suggested in a low voice. Curry favor with him? Nan Tianba's mouth twitched. His personality had always been overbearing, and he rarely lowered his head to others. However, after thinking about it, the current situation was indeed stronger than him. This Su Lingchong was so powerful that it wasn't good to offend him, so he could only change the topic and say, "It won't be easy to explain to shopkeeper C, right?" Nominally, he and the 2 Southern Sky Gate brothers had already become outer members of the center, and they followed Si Haishao. Bullshit. I've asked around in private. When this young Master Su came back, Si Haishao immediately came over to curry favor with him, but he didn't tell us. Southern Sky Gate curled his lips. Really? Then we can give it a try. Otherwise, when Su Lingchong really makes it big, we'll be reduced to the sidelines and won't even be able to get a share. Nan Tianba nodded thoughtfully. While the 2 brothers were whispering to each other, they suddenly felt someone pat them from behind. They were shocked, and when they turned around they looked at each other in shock. The person in front of them was the traitorous disciple, Wuxia, who had disappeared for a long time. At this moment he was standing there with a proud smile on his face. Carrying the crime of murdering his master, even if Wuxia wasn't wanted by the disciplinary hall, he was still a street rat that everyone wanted to beat up. When he suddenly disappeared, he should have disappeared from the face of the earth. Who would have thought that after such a long time, this brat would still dare to appear in front of everyone, especially in front of the 2 Nan Tianba brothers? Nan Tianba was instantly enraged. He still wanted to take revenge for his 3rd brother, Nan Tianyong. Previously he wanted to cut Wuxia into 1,000 pieces as a living sacrifice, but this brat had disappeared from the face of the earth, using some unknown method to escape. Now that they suddenly met again, how could he not be angry? Nan Tianba was about to explode on the spot, but the Southern Sky Gate next to him quickly stopped him. Chapter 4201. Big Brother, today's inner disciple competition strictly forbids private fights. If you break the rules, you will be heavily punished. This brat dared to appear in front of us in order to provoke you. He has a sinister heart, you must not be fooled by him. Southern Sky Gate advised. Hearing this, Nan Tianba suppressed his anger and pointed at Wuxia's nose. Humph, you rebellious disciple, you actually dared to come back. You really have guts. That's good, I've been looking for you for so long and now you've come to me. Haha, isn't this Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate's martial uncles? I haven't seen you for a long time. Wuxia, on the other hand, was calm and composed. He didn't put the two of them in his eyes at all. Instead he proudly laughed, "Oh right, I was wrong. You two are no longer my martial uncles, wah. Nonsense, how could we have such a rebellious disciple like you?" Nan Qianba angrily said. "You two have misunderstood. What I mean is, you two are not worthy to be my martial uncles." Ah. Wuxia still had a fearless and arrogant expression on his face. "You're courting death." Nan Qianba was unable to restrain his anger and was about to attack Wuxia. Even if he had to be heavily punished, he still had to teach this reckless disciple a lesson today. After so many months, he didn't know why Wuxia suddenly appeared and why he dared to act like this in front of the two of them. However, no matter what the reason was, it couldn't change the fact that this brat was a clown. With Nan Qianba's tyrannical personality, how could he tolerate someone throwing sand in his eyes? However, just as Nan Qianba was about to make his move, Wuxia suddenly coldly smiled and released his aura without any reservation. Surprisingly, he was at the early gold core stage. The two sides were very close. Nan Qianba and Southern Sky Gate were caught off guard and were so scared that they took a step back. Both of them were shocked and looked at each other. "You're actually at the early gold core stage. How is this possible?" Nan Qianba said with a face full of disbelief. He himself was also at the early gold core stage. Moreover, he was already very experienced and was much stronger than the average beginning stage golden elixir realm expert. However, in front of this rebellious disciple, Wuxia, he actually felt a sense of danger, causing him to instinctively shudder. What's impossible about this? He was only at the early golden core stage. After a while, I'll be even stronger than this. Wuxia sneered proudly. His expression was filled with indescribable confidence. What a vile man. Although Nan Qianba and Southern Sky Gate were shocked, they still asked in a low voice, "Where have you been all this time? What do you think?" Wuxia glanced at the two of them playfully, curled his lips and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, this matter is actually quite interesting. I still have to thank the two of you. If it weren't for the two of you wanting to cut me into 1,000 pieces and use me as a living sacrifice, I wouldn't have had such a fortuitous encounter. Forgive me for being curious, but what are the two of you feeling right now? Was it apprehension, fear, or regret?" "Ah. Cut the crap. Don't run if you have the guts. Come out and fight me. I don't believe that I can't deal with a clown like you." Nan Qianba's anger soared to the heavens. Southern Sky Gate only had the strength of a peak foundation establishment cultivator, so he was no longer Wuxia's opponent. However, he was Nan Qianba. Even if he felt the threat of Wuxia, he didn't believe that he couldn't kill this rebellious disciple. No matter what crooked methods Wuxia used to increase his strength, in front of a veteran gold core early stage expert, he was still a paper tiger. "Don't worry, I'm going to participate in the intersect competition anyways. Who knows, maybe I'll pick you on the stage. At that time, in front of so many people, I'll return the humiliation you brought me, you old dog. Bit by bit I'll return it to you, wah." Wuxia calmly sneered. Being called an old dog in front of him. Nan Qianba was so domineering that his veins popped. He tightly clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "Then what if I don't pick you? What will you say?" Then we'll directly challenge you. If there's no audience for a popular show like Revenge, don't you think it'd be boring?" Wuxia smiled. From his words and actions, he didn't put Nan Qianba in his eyes at all. As for Southern Sky Gate, there was no need to even mention it. "Alright, then we'll wait and see." Nan Qianba fiercely glared at him. He wanted to skin this scum alive, but it wasn't time yet, so he could only endure it for a while. He didn't know if someone had secretly done something or if it was really a coincidence, but after a while, the result of the draw was actually Nan Qianba against Wuxia. It's really the will of the heavens. It looks like Third Brother's spirit in heaven wants me to take revenge for him. Nan Qianba sneered and took the lead to walk onto the stage. Maybe he feels lonely and wants me to send you to accompany him?" Wuxia also sneered. When he walked onto the stage, the entire audience was in an uproar. The matter of Wuxia killing his master, although it wasn't officially decided by the law enforcement hall and he wasn't wanted on the wanted list, it caused a huge uproar and everyone knew about it. Who would have thought that this guy would return at such a crucial moment in the intersect competition? Moreover, this guy was now an early-stage gold core expert. After Su Lingchong, he was the second person to suddenly return after disappearing, and his strength had inexplicably increased. For a moment, everyone in the audience had the thought of watching a good show. This kind of grudge match was something they loved to see. Even if everyone in the audience were gold core experts, they still had the heart to gossip. Both sides on the stage were at daggers drawn. After confronting each other for a moment, following the referee's order, both of them rushed forward at the same time. Both sides were filled with murderous intent, looking like they wanted to eat each other up. This Yuja seemed a bit strange, and although Nan Qianba was only at the early stage of Gold Core, he was a ruthless character who killed decisively. His strength was much stronger than an average expert of the same level. Moreover, this was an unforgettable grudge match. Everyone thought that the process of this match would be very anxious, but they didn't expect that the development of the situation would be far beyond their expectations. In just one move, this grudge match was decided. Nan Qianba was directly swept away by a sword chi, and Yuja won. Even when the referee announced the winner, the audience still hadn't reacted. It was completely silent, and everyone looked at each other in dismay. It was rare to see a good show to relieve boredom. How could it end like this? At this moment, on the viewing platform, Shanghai Tianhua was even more speechless. Another Gold Core expert had a perfect breakthrough, and this was already the fifth. Wasn't this world a bit too crazy? Below the stage, Southern Sky Gate hurriedly helped the embarrassed Nan Qianba up. Although he was sent flying in one move, Nan Qianba was after all experienced. At this moment, he actually didn't suffer any serious injuries. He only looked a bit embarrassed, that's all. Chapter 4202. Even so, in front of so many Golden Core experts, he was defeated by his traitorous disciple Yuja in one move. This time he had lost all of his face. He stood in place with a shocked expression, not daring to raise his head for a long time. Old dog, now you know how powerful I am. Wah! Yuja laughed proudly on the stage. This time he had finally vented his anger. Nan Qianba and Southern Sky Gate looked at him hatefully, but they didn't dare to talk back. They could only lower their heads and leave the stage. Aside from the two of them, everyone present was at least a Golden Core expert. Yuja was originally a nobody, yet he dared to be so arrogant. This naturally made people unhappy. However, Yuja was able to defeat Nan Qianba in one move. His strength was obvious to all. No one was willing to provoke this kind of person for no reason. Lin Yi, who was in the crowd, couldn't help but furrow his brows. Yuja's strength really couldn't be underestimated. His intuition told him that this guy and Su Lingchong had some kind of unknown relationship. After all, the two's performance was too similar. On the first day, the first round of the individual battles ended and the top 100 list was announced. Compared to the previous rounds, there was a big difference. There were a lot more new faces. Although there would always be a group of new Golden Core experts among the outer disciples of the three great pavilions, they would all participate in the inter-sect competition. However, because of their strength, very few of them would enter the top 100 list. After all, they were both early-stage Golden Core experts. Compared to the outer disciples, the inner disciple strength was at least one level higher. Under normal circumstances, very few people could win in this kind of situation. However, this time, there were many outer disciples that advanced to the top 100. Among them, Lin Yi and Meng Tong were even newcomers to the new pavilions. With so many new people emerging from the three great pavilions, it was like the new generation was pushing the old generation. On the second day, the second round of the individual battles began. It was still the elimination round. This time, Lin Yi's opponent really surprised him. It was actually Yuja. The two of them faced each other from afar. The aura that Yuja emitted made Lin Yi's heart tremble. Yesterday he was far away from the stage, so he couldn't feel it too clearly. However, at this moment he realized that this guy was not any weaker than him. If there were no accidents, this Yuja should also be a perfect Golden Core expert. Lin Yi secretly determined in his heart, and besides being suspicious, he couldn't help but be even more surprised and bewildered. Su Lingchong, Meng Tong, and Yuja kept having the feeling that there was a shapeless hand controlling all of this from behind. Hee, long time no see, Lin Yi. Last time I was tricked by your crafty schemes. You won't be so lucky this time. Why don't you know what's good for you and directly beg me for mercy and admit defeat? Maybe I'll be merciful and let you live. Yuja said with a cold smile. Beg for mercy? It was not impossible. But you seem to have it the other way around. It should be you begging me for mercy, right? Hee, in the few times we fought, which time didn't you flee in defeat? Lin Yi asked with a faint smile. If he just got lucky. How dare you mention the past to me? Can't you see the current situation clearly? Do you really think you're invincible just because you have the title of Rookie King? Yuja's expression instantly turned cold. Invincible? Then I'm not that ignorant. But if it's just dealing with scum like you, it's more than enough. Lin Yi's expression was still indifferent. Yuzha was about to taunt back when his expression suddenly changed. Because he noticed that Lin Yi's hands were purposely hidden behind his back, as if he was doing something petty. His mind quivered. Yuzha instantly recalled the scene when Lin Yi dealt with Nan Tianyong. Looking at this posture, this brat should be secretly condensing that whatever pill firebomb again. So he purposely lured him to taunt and stall for time. Regarding this pill firebomb, Yuzha had a shadow in his heart. Back then Lin Yi's meager strength was enough to mess with Nan Tianyong, a peak late-stage foundation establishment expert, until he was half dead. Now that they were both early-stage golden core experts, no matter how confident he was in his own strength, he didn't dare to let Lin Yi hold back his big move. Don't even think about stalling for time. Use the same trick again. Yuzha didn't dare to continue talking nonsense. He hurriedly condensed sword chi at his fingertips and went straight for Lin Yi, swearing to interrupt Lin Yi's accumulation. Seeing this, Lin Yi didn't dodge. At the same time his figure flashed towards Yuzha. When they were close enough, the hands hidden behind his back suddenly attacked, as if he wanted to slap Yuzha's face. As expected, Yuzha understood. He was certain that Lin Yi had a pill firebomb in his hands. He didn't dare to take it head-on. His figure flashed and he was about to dodge to the side. That was his intention all along, to lure Lin Yi's refinement firebomb out. As long as he could dodge it, he wouldn't have to worry about anything else. The refinement firebomb was a heaven-defying trump card, and he couldn't control it as he pleased. This was the perfect opportunity to deal a fatal blow to Lin Yi. But in the next moment, the expression on Yuzha's face became extremely interesting. Lin Yi didn't have anything in his hands. He didn't even condense any true chi, let alone a pill firebomb. He was just fooling around with him. Yuzha instantly flew into a rage. But before he could do anything, Lin Yi had already swept his mad fire thousand legs on his body. Caught off guard, Yuzha was directly kicked out and fell off the stage. Lin Yi wins, the judge immediately announced. The entire crowd was stunned. When Yuzha came to his senses, he angrily stomped his feet below the stage and cursed, "Despicable and shameless. You fucking cheated." "Oh, whatever you say, idiot." Lin Yi shrugged nonchalantly. After nodding at the judge, he calmly walked off the stage. Yuzha was choked by these words and couldn't speak for a long time. He was so angry that he wanted to eat someone on the spot. This time, defeating Nan Tianba in one move was just a small appetizer. He was prepared to show off his godly power, but he didn't think that he would be toyed with by Lin Yi. He didn't even have the chance to display his true strength before being defeated. No one would be willing to accept this. Looking at his expression, Lin Yi faintly curled his lips. He was too lazy to bother with him. If they were to really compete in strength, even though Yuzha was an early-stage gold core expert, Lin Yi was still confident that he could directly crush his opponent. But this would waste a lot of energy. As long as he could win, it didn't matter how he won. Lin Yi didn't want to waste too much energy on Yuzha. It should be known that today was different from yesterday. Yesterday they only needed to fight one round, but after the second round was over, the third round would immediately begin. Whether or not they could preserve enough energy was very important. Chapter 4203. Good. Well done. This traitorous disciple deserves to be disgraced. In the crowd, Nan Tianba and the Nan Tianmen brothers felt relieved when they saw this scene. WX. Although Lin Yi was also their enemy, his hatred towards Yuzha was much higher. Yesterday he had just been humiliated by Yuzha, and today he saw Yuzha end up in the same situation. This feeling was too great. Lin Yi ignored the cursing Yuzha and turned his attention to another match. One of the main characters was Huang Xiaotao, and her opponent today was Meng Tong. If it was a coincidence, it was already a coincidence that Lin Yi was matched up against Yuzha. He didn't expect Huang Xiaotao to be matched up against Meng Tong. This could no longer be explained as a coincidence. In addition, the host of the inner disciple competition was Su Yuanzheng. It would be strange to say that no one had secretly tampered with the drawing of lots. Huang Xiaotao and Meng Tong were both in the early stage of the Golden Core realm. Moreover, they both had a perfect breakthrough to the early stage of the Golden Core realm. Purely in terms of strength, they could be considered a pair of formidable opponents. However, Huang Xiaotao's martial arts and weapons were at a great disadvantage in the arena. Especially in a one-on-one battle, there was no one who could cover for her. It was already not easy to win against Wu Bufan in the first round yesterday. Now that she was matched up against Meng Tong, who was also a perfect Golden Core expert, her chances of winning were naturally not high. Even Lin Yi didn't expect her to win. Meng Tong's strength was far superior to Wu Bufan's. Moreover, he was an expert with 1,000 kicks and was a speed-type expert. It would be much easier for him to close the distance between him and Huang Xiaotao than Wu Bufan. More importantly, Huang Xiaotao's move of turning an arrow into a spear had already been exposed yesterday. Once this move was guarded against, it would be difficult for it to have any effect. The truth was indeed as Lin Yi expected. After persisting for the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Huang Xiaotao was finally defeated by Meng Tong's 1,000 kicks. Fortunately, Lin Yi had already instructed her to protect herself. This time, Meng Tong had followed Su Lingchong's instructions and wanted to directly kill Huang Xiaotao, putting Lin Yi in a difficult position in the following 2-on-2 battle. He didn't expect that Huang Xiaotao would choose to admit defeat after knowing that she was no match for him, leaving him with no way to make a move. "Humph, consider yourself lucky that you escaped quickly?" Meng Tong sneered as he glanced at Huang Xiaotao. He then walked down the stage and faced Su Lingchong. With a face full of disdain, he commented, "Just as so? That's good. Lin Yi has found such a trashy woman to be his partner. When the time comes, he'll just be asking for trouble." Su Lingchong laughed and nodded in relief. Huang Xiaotao's performance yesterday was also a rare sight to behold. At first, he was still a little afraid of her, but now that Meng Tong had found out more about her, there was nothing to worry about. In the morning, the second round of the individual battles had all ended. The list of the top 50 was released. Lin Yi, Meng Tong, and Su Lingchong, these few new faces from the intersect competition were still on the list. Compared to the top 100, the quality of the top 50 list was obviously a level higher. Getting into the top 100 could still depend on luck, but to get into the top 50, one must have real strength. There was no doubt about this. The top 50 was already considered the upper class among all the Gold Core Stage disciples. There was already a world of difference between them and the people behind. Not to mention anything else, at least they could already ensure that they would get points, even if the last place only had 1 point. In the afternoon, the third round of the individual battles began. The remaining 50 people charged towards the top 25. However, there were not 25 matches in the competition. Among the top 50, there were some people who had won in the morning, but it was a narrow or even a Pyrrhic victory. Even if they were not seriously injured, they had used up all their Jin Qi and could no longer continue to fight. This kind of situation had already appeared in the second round in the morning. However, after a night of rest, most of them still had the strength to fight, so it was rare for them to directly give up. Now that it was the third round, there were at least 10 people in the top 50 who were forced to give up. They did not participate in the drawing of lots, but directly tied for the last place in the top 50, and each obtained 1 point. As for the rest of the people, they continued to draw lots to compete. Once they lost, it meant that they would stop here. If they won, it did not mean that they could go further, because after every round, there would be people who could not continue to fight due to their poor condition, and after obtaining the corresponding points, they would withdraw. Along the way, Lin Yi was more scared than hurt. Finally, after defeating a peak Gold Core Middle Stage Master by luck, he stood at the peak of the top 50 and entered the final of the individual battles. Such a domineering performance really stunned everyone present. He was only an expert at the initial stage of the Golden Core realm, and he was even a new disciple of the Welcome Pavilion that had only joined the 3 great pavilions for a year. Now he had actually passed through all the tests successfully and entered into the finals of the individual battles of the inner court competition. This was an unprecedented feat, a legend that could be recorded in the annals of history. Even Zhang Liju from all those years ago didn't defy the heavens to such an extent. Of course, besides his own tyrannical strength, another important reason why Lin Yi was able to successfully laugh until the end was because there were very few core disciples above the late stage of the Golden Core stage participating in the intersect competition, and even those at the peak of the Golden Core stage rarely appeared here. Most people whose strength had reached this level were already disciples of the various higher-ups of the sect, and some weren't even disciples in name, but official disciples, so there was no need for them to participate in the intersect competition at all. Their cultivation resources were naturally prepared by these higher-ups themselves, and they didn't need to rely on the resources allocated by the officials of the 3 great pavilions. Naturally, there was no need for them to participate in the intersect competition. In fact, many core disciples of the intersect wouldn't participate in the intersect competition in the second year after they became disciples in name of the higher-ups of the sect. Of course, there were always some exceptions. For example, the peak Gold Core Middle Stage Master that Lin Yi faced earlier, or the advanced stage master that Su Lingchong faced in the first round. At the same time that Lin Yi had locked in his position in the finals, the outcome of the battle had similarly been decided on the other side. The opponent that Lin Yi was about to face was precisely his old enemy, Su Lingchong. At this moment, the sky was already dusk. Both of them stood on the arena of the finals, and the afterglow of the setting sun descended onto their bodies, causing them to actually seem to be dyed in a crimson-red killing intent, causing everyone below the arena to be unable to look directly at them. The battle hadn't even begun, yet the atmosphere was already confrontational, and the interest of everyone below the arena was aroused. No matter if it was Lin Yi or Su Lingchong, they were both influential figures at the center of the conversation. Now that they'd both advanced into the finals of the individual battles, it was extremely explosive. Chapter 4204. Hee little Lan who do you hope to win? Shanghai Tianhua said with a smile. W's, of course I hope that little junior brother wins but, Shanghai Laner pursed her lips. Although she didn't want to say disheartening words, she had always been very confident in Lin Yi, but the problem was that Su Lingchong was too strong after he came back. Previously he could even easily crush a late-stage Gold Core Realm expert, and Lin Yi had a hard time winning against a peak middle-stage Gold Core Realm expert. She just didn't like to cultivate, but under the influence of Shanghai Tianhua for so many years she still had a good eye. She could see that unless Lin Yi had another strong trump card, it would be difficult to win against Su Lingchong head-on. But you think that Lin Yi can't win against Su Lingchong? Shanghai Tianhua smiled non-committally and said indifferently, watch carefully. In so many years of inter-court competition, this year's is the most interesting. On the arena, Su Lingchong looked at Lin Yi opposite him, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a proud smile. He and Lin Yi were standing on this final arena, and it wasn't purely a coincidence. It could be said that he secretly found someone to arrange it, but he really didn't think that Lin Yi could actually reach this step. Otherwise, if Lin Yi didn't have enough strength, even if he secretly arranged it, there was no way he could stay until now. But this was just right. He found a late-stage Gold Core Realm expert for the first battle, announcing his strong entrance, and now he just happened to take Lin Yi's head in the final battle, to celebrate his ascension to the first throne in the inter-court competition. This was Su Lingchong's original intention. It's really not easy for a pretentious newbie to stumble into the finals, but this young master isn't so exciting. There's no challenge at all, it's really boring. Su Lingchong paused for a moment, then said with a playful expression, with so many grudges between us, I should take this opportunity to properly torture you. However, this young master has decided to be merciful for once. I'll give you a word of advice. I admit defeat. Oh, since you've made such a sincere request, I'll do as you wish and admit defeat. Lin Yi nodded and said with a playful smile on his face. Did he admit defeat just like that? Everyone in the audience was in an uproar. They had thought that it would be a fierce battle, and they were mentally prepared to witness a battle of the limelight. But in the end, Lin Yi actually admitted defeat? It was like punching a cotton ball in the balls. In other words, you've already taken off your pants and you're showing us this? Not only were the audience dumbfounded, even Su Ling, who was on the stage, had a look of disbelief on her face, unable to close her mouth for a long time. Asking Lin Yi to take the initiative to admit defeat was just a joke he used to mock others. Even he himself felt that it was impossible. Who would have thought that Lin Yi would actually obediently do as he was told? As for Shanghai Laner and Huang Xiaotao in the audience at the moment, their expressions were also stunned. Apart from being surprised, they secretly breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what, at least Lin Yi would not be injured. Not only that, even Shanghai Tianhua, who was next to them after hearing Lin Yi's words, could not help but look stunned, and then he laughed and shook his head. This little guy really didn't play cards according to the routine. However, it was also this unconventional way of playing cards that proved that Lin Yi was not a simple-minded boor. Not only did he have strength and potential, but he also did things calmly and knew when to advance and retreat. He did not care about temporary gains and losses so that he could go further in the future. In fact, Lin Yi already had a hard time winning against an expert in the middle stage of the Golden Elixir realm in the last round. He had used up a lot of physical strength and vital energy, and even suffered some minor injuries. Although his injuries had been healed by the art of dragon mastery, and his vital energy had almost recovered under the replenishment of the space in the Jade Pendant, but the mental fatigue was not so easy to relieve. With his current state against Su Lingchong, who was at the peak of the midday sky, it was not to say that he had no chance of winning, but at least it was very difficult and he needed to pay a huge price to have a chance. Knowing that his state was not good, but still forcefully acting tough, that was the behavior of a brainless boor. Lin Yi had not pretended to be pretentious to this extent. One must know that even if Lin Yi directly admitted defeat, he would still be second in the individual battle, and he would still be able to get 49 points, which was only a little less than Su Lingcheng's 50 points. There was still the pair battle, and this little point could not be considered a difference at all. After all, the final ranking was based on the sum of the points of the two battles. As for whether it was first or second in the individual battle, no one would care about it. Admit defeat just like that? Don't you, this pretentious newbie, always know how to act pretentious? Why don't you dare today? After Su Lingcheng recovered from his shock, he instantly seized the opportunity to ridicule Lin Yi, and he mocked and ridiculed. Looks like you, this newcomer king, is still very sensible. I allowed you to jump around like this in the past, but it was only because I couldn't be bothered to pay attention to you. Now that I have the chance to deal with you, in the end, you became a tortoise that hid its head in its shell without saying a word. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong, you've really carried out the words very well. At the same time that Su Lingcheng seized the opportunity to ridicule Lin Yi without restraint on the arena, the people below the arena were pointing and discussing, and the gazes they shot at Lin Yi were obviously much more disdainful than before. Looks like this so-called pretentious newcomer king that came out of nowhere is nothing more than this, and he has an undeserved reputation. Lin Yi smiled indifferently, and utterly couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Su Lingcheng and the people below the arena, as if nothing had happened. He turned around and walked down the arena by himself, and the expression on his face was still carefree from the beginning until the end, as if he didn't care in the slightest. At this point, the single battles of the first segment of the inner court competition had all ended, and at the same time that a pile of topics were left behind, it could be summed up with a single word: new disciples emerge in large numbers. The first, Su Lingcheng, was an outer court disciple that was participating in the inner court competition for the first time. The second, Lin Yi, was instead simply a new disciple of the Welcome Pavilion. As for the others, Meng Tong, Yuzhe, and the others, all of them had left a deep impression on everyone. This sort of outcome was absolutely unprecedented, and everyone could already foresee that this generation of inner court disciples would surely become a golden generation that was sufficient to be recorded in the annals of history, and besides causing people to take delight in talking about them, they would lead the future of the three great pavilions of the northern island. After the single battles ended, there would be 3 days of rest and reorganization time, and right after that would be the pair battles. Because the number of battles would be halved, the schedule of the battles at that time would be even more compact than the single battles, and it would be completed within a single day, and there wouldn't be any chance for rest and reorganization. Chapter 4205. Even if they didn't get a point in the previous single battle, as long as they did well in the next pair battle, there was still a possibility of catching up and succeeding. Because in the pair battle, both participants would get the same points. For example, in the first place, both of them would get 50 points each. In addition, the number of matches in the pair battle would be reduced by half. As long as they could win one round, they would be able to enter the top 50 and get points, which was much easier than the single battle. If they performed well in the pair battle, even if they didn't get a point in the single battle, they would still be on the list in the end, and it was very likely to be on the list. After all, those disciples who got points in the single battle might be directly eliminated in the second round without getting a point. This was not impossible. In short, before the official start of the pair battle, it was still too early to say anything now. Only after all the battles were over would the dust finally settle. After Su Yuanjing announced, all the disciples dispersed to rest and reorganize. Lin Yi returned to his cave residence with Huang Xiaotao, taking advantage of these 3 days to continue to practice the Frenzy 8 diagrams palm. After all, this was the only joint attack trump card they could rely on. Apart from this, they could only fight individually, and they would be very passive if they encountered a strong enemy. Lin Yi had a hunch that in the next pair battle, he and Huang Xiaotao were very likely to encounter Su Lingcheng and Meng Tong. With these two people's aggressive posture, if they didn't quickly practice the Frenzy 8 diagrams palm, it would be really hard to say who would be the winner. However, what made Lin Yi dumbfounded was that Shanghai Laner also insisted on coming to join in the fun. For 3 days she had been staying with Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao. It should be known that this girl was not interested in martial arts cultivation at all in the past. This time it was rare for her to be abnormal. What exactly was she thinking? It was estimated that only Laner herself knew in her heart. 3 days passed in a flash, and all the participating disciples once again gathered in the North Island arena. The highly anticipated pair battle of the inner core competition officially began. The first person to be drawn to appear on the stage was a familiar face. It was a familiar face that he had met once before. It was Yu Daong, who had directly admitted defeat to Lin Yi in the first round of the one-on-one battle. He was at the early stage of the gold core realm. Although his partner was stronger, there was a limit to his strength. He was only at the peak of the early stage of the gold core realm. Such a combination could not be considered strong on paper. Moreover, the results of the two of them in the previous individual battles were not good. Neither of them had obtained a single point, which was seen by the audience. Naturally, he would think that this pair of people was purely cannon fodder and had no chance of winning. However, the final result was a huge shock. The two of them faced a team of two experts at the peak of the early golden elixir realm, and they actually defeated the strong with the weak and had the last laugh. The cooperation between these two people is quite good, especially this Yu Daong. I originally thought that he would be the other party's breakthrough point, but I didn't expect him to beat me at my own game. Instead, he became the turning point of victory and defeat. He's not a simple character, Lin Yi commented. The first time he took the initiative to admit defeat, the second time he beat Yu Daong at his own game. In the eyes of others, he might not be as dazzling as the genius newcomers, but Lin Yi secretly remembered this person's name in his heart. This person was not an ordinary person. In the future, if there were enough opportunities, it was not impossible for him to become a great talent. In the future, they would all be inner disciples of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. Perhaps there would be opportunities to interact with each other. And just as Lin Yi secretly nodded, the next pair on the stage. This caused an uproar in the audience. Even Lin Yi's eyelids couldn't help but twitch when he saw it. One of them was Wuxia. Although he had been the talk of the town in the solo battle, he had been defeated by Lin Yi in one move. He wouldn't have been able to cause a commotion if he was alone, but the key was that his teammate was Nan Qianba. Looking at this pair on the stage, everyone was shocked and couldn't help but roar in their hearts. What kind of world is this? These two guys had a deep hatred for each other. A few days ago they were trampling each other to death. In the end, they became partners in the blink of an eye. Was this really going against the heavens? Amidst the exclamations, Wuxia and Nan Qianba had already joined forces on the stage to fight. The two of them were in the early golden elixir realm, but they had to face a team of experts at the peak of the early golden elixir realm. Normally they had no chance of winning, but in the end, it was a completely one-sided crushing. Wuxia and Nan Qianba, the two of them relied on their uncoordinated teamwork to crush their opponents and enter the top 50 with their heads held high. Chapter 4206. Yes, young Master Su, I'm here to report to you. As Wuxia spoke, he smiled and looked at Nantian-ba and Nantian Gate playfully. Report? Nantian-ba and Nantian Gate were dumbfounded. Wuxia had never interacted with this young Master Su before. How did he suddenly become young Master Su's underling? That's right. You two might not know this, but Wuxia is already a member of our center. Su Lingchong explained to the two. Furthermore, he's different from you two. He's not just an outer member, he's a special assistant that the mysterious person assigned to me. Special assistant? Nantian-ba and Nantian Gate exchanged glances with each other. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Apart from the shock, their expressions also became extremely interesting. They had just hugged a thick thigh and thought that they wouldn't have to be afraid of Wuxia anymore. They thought that they could borrow young Master Su's power to take care of this disgraceful scoundrel. But in the blink of an eye they had become allies? What was even more ridiculous was that Wuxia's position as a traitor was actually higher than the two of them. Since you've already joined the center, don't think about your previous grudges. There's no point in thinking about it. If anyone dares to harm one of our own, I won't forgive them. Su Lingchong swept his gaze across the three people in front of him and said calmly. He emitted the aura of a superior and gave off an imposing aura without being angry. Yes. Wuxia agreed straightforwardly. After all, he had already gotten his revenge in the first round of the individual battles. He had already vented his anger. Furthermore, his strength and future were much stronger than Nantian-ba and the others, so there was nothing to worry about. Nantian-ba and Nantian Gate looked at each other unwillingly. However, due to Su Lingchong's tyrannical power, they could only nod in agreement. They knew that it was impossible to get revenge on Wuxia now. Even their uncle, Nantian Aurora, who was far away on the Middle Island, might not be able to do it. Nantian Aurora had also joined the center. Furthermore, he was a core member. However, the center couldn't allow him to harm one of their own. They could only continue to suppress their anger for the time being. Very good. We don't have any other assignments for now, so make good use of the inner court competition this time and try to obtain as much attention as possible. It's best if you can seize the opportunity to become a disciple of some higher-ups, understand? Su Lingchong instructed. Yes, but young Master Su. Right now, I'm still lacking a partner to fight in pairs. Yuja replied. He had just returned a few days ago and he didn't know any Oris core stage experts before this, so it was normal that he didn't have a partner at the moment. That's simple. Isn't there a ready-made one in front of us? Nan Qianba, you'll partner with Yuja next. If you've already agreed on a partner, kick them out. Our own people are more important. Su Lingchong said decisively. Although Nan Qianba's expression was somewhat conflicted, he did not dare to disobey Su Lingchong's orders. He could only force himself to put aside his personal grudges and temporarily choose to ally with Yuja. Both of them were competing against each other in the inner court grand competition. That was why the scene that everyone was confused had occurred today. While everyone was puzzled, they couldn't help but feel fearful in their hearts when faced with this odd duo. After all, Yuja's performance really couldn't be underestimated, and he absolutely couldn't let his guard down when facing them. Otherwise, he might follow in the footsteps of this pair of peak early-stage golden core cultivators. However, although the duo of Yuja and Nan Qianba was fearful, to those inner court core disciples who were truly strong, they didn't need to worry too much. The newcomer duo that was about to go up next was the one that they truly needed to be on tenterhooks with, Su Lingchong and Meng Tong. Meng Tong was a newcomer who came from the welcoming pavilion like Lin Yi. The strength that he had displayed in the individual battles was not the slightest bit weaker than Yuja, and even surpassed him. At least in terms of ranking, he was much better than Yuja, who was blocked out of the top 50 by Lin Yi. And Su Lingchong's strong strength was obvious to all. From the first round of the individual battles to the last place, he crushed his opponents without any suspense. Looking at all the Oris Core stage disciples that participated in this year's Inner Court Grand Competition, there simply wasn't a single opponent that could match up to him. Originally, everyone thought that Lin Yi, who also had a good reputation, would be a competitor. After all, he also relied on his tyrannical strength to forcefully enter the finals of the individual battles. But reality proved that this pretentious newcomer king was not even worth mentioning in front of the powerful Su Lingchong. He didn't even have the courage to fight with Su Lingchong. What strength was there to talk about? He was just a pretentious leader that only knew how to bully the weak and fear the strong. With a strong aura, Su Lingchong and Meng Tong slowly walked up to the arena side by side. They were like emperors looking down at the spectators below the arena, the corners of their mouths raised into an incomparably confident smile. At this time their opponents had not been drawn yet, but Su Lingchong already knew who the opponent would be, because he had already informed Su Yuanjing that in the first round of the duo battles he would fight Lin Yi. In the individual battles before, he deliberately did not meet Lin Yi and kept it until the finals. Su Lingchong did it so that he could trample Lin Yi to death in the finals. Only then would it be considered complete. But he did not expect that Lin Yi would be so cunning, directly choosing to admit defeat and not giving him a chance to make a move at all. Lin Yi also obtained 49 points, which made him secretly feel that he had miscalculated. So this time he wanted to kill Lin Yi as soon as he came up, not giving Lin Yi any chance. If Lin Yi directly admitted defeat, then there wouldn't be any points for the duo battles, and the loss wouldn't be just 1 or 2 points. As expected, the opponents that were drawn next caused another uproar. It was Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao. Amidst the clamor, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao walked up to the arena and stood opposite Su Lingchong and Meng Tong. Their faces were calm and composed. Lin Yi was naturally not afraid of Su Lingchong and Meng Tong. As for Huang Xiaotao, she was a little nervous at this moment, but she was wearing a veil so no one could see it. Pretentious rookie king, since you chose to directly admit defeat in the individual battles before, why don't you be a little more tactful and admit defeat together this time? Su Lingchong took the lead and laughed coldly. In any case, the two of you were defeated by Chongchong and me. Now that you are together, you will only lose faster and more miserably. Since Chongchong is kind enough to give you a way out, you might as well be tactful and directly admit defeat, so that you won't be beaten to tears by the two of us later. That would be too embarrassing, don't you think? Meng Tong, who was at the side, echoed with a face full of contempt, "You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories." Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.